Welcome back, viewers all, to my tall and small review thrall. Thought I'd try something a little different with the intro there. I don't really think it worked. I was like, you know, you're a funny guy, just wing it. I don't think it really paid off in the end. Well, anyway, my comedic failures aside, we got some lovely art here today. Before we get into reviews, let's just acknowledge JOnlineNG for this beautiful art. I don't really know why the noise is a rat, but the noise is a rat. I mean, if the noise was any kind of animal, he would be a rat, surely. In fact, wasn't there... Is that like one of his taunts, maybe, actually? What am I thinking of? I think, now that I say it out loud, Noisehood and Rathood are actually inextricably linked in some way. I don't know, though. Roach reference? It could be a Roach reference. So, I'm back from Michigan, guys. I missed my rats so much, speaking of rats, and now they're here again. Or I'm here again, and, it was a huge relief. I was so worried about the little boys, and I came back, and they were still there miraculously. My landlord did a good job taking care of them, but I was just so worried, and I missed them so much, and it was so nice to be able to smooch their little heads. Anyway, I would not smooch this rat noises little head, regardless of what head it is. I notice he's got a bit of a bulge there. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. He's just got loose pants, but regardless, I've rambled on long enough, tangentially. Thank you, JOnlineNG, for this beautiful art. Obviously I would have used this if I had been, you know, intending on playing any more Noise Pizza Tower, but I don't really think I will. Huh. I also, like, I don't know if this little splotch in the corner was meant for me to put the stream will begin shortly up there, but it just fits perfectly. Anyway, let's get the review spreadsheet up. Now, if you've never joined us for a game review stream before, this is me sitting in front of a spreadsheet. I obsessively keep a list of all the games I've streamed, and even some that I have not streamed. I've started a little section at the bottom in recent streams of this, of games that I played off stream but I wish to review regardless. And I give them number ratings, which aren't really supposed to be like the crux of the review. I mostly just verbally say my thoughts on a game, say whether or not I would recommend it, or if there's any, like, qualifiers, I guess. Bickman269 only if you really want a challenge. This actually should be changed now for the DX edition of that game. They added streamer mode. You are a madman. I simply love bookkeeping. You could get unspeakable diseases from smooching the noise. So, anyway, oh, you know, I was gonna put on my webcam for this, too. I've also got this for later. You'll see how that comes into play. I say that like it's going to make sense. Here I am, rock you like a hurricane. Guys, check out this bug that I found. He's awesome. Thumbnail. That's not the thumbnail. I got this out of a gachapon in Michigan. We went to a gachapon store, and one of them was just like, hey, you want like a really realistic like model of a bug with like articulation and shit? It's awesome. And we got... Oh, actually, I should have arranged the stuff. There's also... We got... Oh, here's one. Toby Fox dog, complete with rope. There was an Undertale gachapon, and Isabel cranked it twice, and both times it was the Toby Fox dog, which was the one that we wanted the most, which is funny. And then I also got these little fellas. There was a Katamari one. Can it focus on that? Unlikely. But they're very cute. They're just like little, like, they're kind of made out of like the jelly. They look like they're glass, but they're actually like, they're pliable. And it's fucking awesome that the machine had Beyond in it. One of my favorite of the Katamari siblings, and the little strawberry one, Ichigo, I think is its name. So that was fun. I don't know why I'm showing off my gachapons. And also, guys, I opened a Kinder Surprise recently. Yeah, I got this little fella. You could say I kind of won the game. It's a pretty good pull. And as long as I'm rambling about stuff that we got in Michigan, you guys ever had these? Peelers. They're gummy candy. I'm gonna get my hands filthy doing this. It's a gummy candy that's shaped like a banana, and you're supposed to peel the banana. So and just to demonstrate how these are terrible, these are fucking god-awful. So just to demonstrate how, like, impossible that task is, let's just try, like, the most reasonable method. It's like there is kind of a peel to it, but, like, this, I swear I'm not doing, like, the infomercial, like, whoa, my hands don't work. It's like, it's so hard to get the peel off. And then when you do get the peel off, your reward is, like, the middest gummy of all time. Like, it's, actually, I kind of think honestly, the peel used to come off better before these went through the teleporter from Michigan to Washington. I think their molecular composition has been compromised. I'm not even eating that. They're nasty. It fails its only premise, and they're gross. They, like, literally don't taste good. And it's like, it's banana candy. That's like cheating at making candy. There's also, the grape ones were a tiny bit better. Here's a grape. But you peel the grape, and it's like, who the fuck, what kind of psycho peels a grape? So, like, here's the grape. I'm sure this one's not gonna work. If the banana didn't work, then the grape sure as hell isn't working. But it's like, oh, you know, okay, there's actually a pretty clean peek beneath the peel. Yeah, you'd need some kind of surgical tools to really do this. Okay, it's kind of coming out. Again, I genuinely, you know, credit where it's due. They did peel better before I was in Washington. Terrible. And the grape ones were, like, slightly, moderately more acceptable in taste, but it's just, you know, gummy candy. The texture was so bad. It's like you would imagine the peel would be, like, I don't know, like waxy, but it's just a shittier gummy, and it's not even that cool kind of, like, fluffy, like, marshmallow gummy or whatever. It's just bad. So I saved these to show them on stream, and now I'm throwing them in the trash because they're terrible. It looks like Alien Head from Risk of Rain 2. What, the grape? Let's see, do I have any other cool bullshit to show off? No, I don't think I do. Actually, I mean, this is unrelated, but as long as I got the webcam out. Shoutouts to my sister who got me this charm. I think it's supposed to be, like, lucky or something? I honestly don't remember the story that she told me about this or where she got it. But I've had this fuck-ass charm on my desk for ages. It's got, like, a little worm inside it and a little metal horseshoe and a bunch of other there's, like, a little wooden totem. Very strange. I wasn't really sure what she was cooking with this one, honestly, but it's here, and listen, I feel lucky. I feel lucky in life, so it must be working. I also got, I don't know why I'm doing show and tell. I'm literally just looking at stuff on my windowsill and showing it, but I got a really bright flashlight. It's actually so funny how this looks in the webcam. It's like blinding. Okay, I'm like shining it like directly at the thing, but it like doubles as a torch. So it's like literally like a sonic screwdriver. It's like a Men in Black, like you've seen too much. I thought that was kind of cool. Isabel's mom got this for me, I guess because she knows dudes love a really powerful flashlight. It's straight off of the r/flashlights subreddit. How's my dent, by the way? Is it good? My hair's pretty fucking huge right now, so I'm assuming my dent is magnificent. Actual flashbang. Now you guys know how I feel when I'm sitting there playing Heaven Studio fireworks and my face gets illuminated. It's not exactly the same. Hey guys, check out this dying star I obtained. I got this from the Shadow Realm. Check out this cool item I got from the Cyber Realm. Can we get a link to the rating sheet? Do we have a chat command for that yet? I can do it manually here. Copy link, view only. Oh, it's on view only for me too. I need to log into the right account. Oh, there is, exclamation point games. Well, I just, needlessly also posted another thing in here. Let me just, while I've got the old webcam on, get into my actual account where I can edit the file. Imagine that. Oh my god, I see so many of your beaming faces. We've got Anonymous Camel. We've got Anonymous Dingo. We've got Anonymous Gopher, Buffalo, Squirrel. Welcome, all you wonderful creatures. Maybe a dingo ate your baby. Alright. Let's... Aren't they different spreadsheets? Oh, yeah, they are. That's the, I actually have... There's like 4 or 5 game spreadsheets because I'm an asshole. It's like so embarrassing. But there's a full game spreadsheet with information and links to VODs and stuff. And then there's a review spreadsheet. And then there's a Flash Games sheet, because Flash Games were so numerous that I didn't want them polluting the main spreadsheet. And then there's a Flash Game review sheet. And maybe more! Imagine. Anyway. God, there's actually so many people in this fucking spreadsheet now. Let me get my webcam cropped down just a little bit, so that I can fit in the corner. Oh, my webcam's mirrored, and then cropping it is also, like, strangely mirrored. Oops, you saw my cool Hylix 2 shirt. Forget you saw anything. Okay. My big hair. Barely scraping the ceiling. Kind of doing this by the seat of my pants here. I probably should have, like, set this up beforehand. But I figure people like the webcam. And these streams are not terribly, like, visually entertaining, I guess. So we like to, you know, throw in a little bit of spice for you. I would show you rats, but they're both sleeping right now. Also, I'm going to leave music on. This is something I've not done in past review streams. I just decided, fuck it. I'm just gonna let music play. I'm just gonna let my, like, Grapefruit's Jams playlist play. I'll put it on shuffle. Fuck it. And if there's anything that comes up that seems like it's gonna get me, like, copyright nuked, I'll skip it. I don't know. I'm always like, oh, like, put this on in the background while you're doing chores or whatever, and put on your own music. But that's, like, such a pain in the ass. Imagine listening to these review streams on your phone while you're, like, doing dishes. And it's like, well, I can't put on music in the background of this. Like, what the fuck? Is there a link for Grapefruit Jams? Just go to my channel. It's on there. Anyway. Let's review games. Okay, I'll put a timestamp to, like, right now so you can skip yapping and complaining about peelers. Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Can you guys see and hear everything okay, by the way? Does everything... Let me know if volume is weird or if anything visually is weird. For some reason, all the Nintendo games are at the top. Oh, you know, I skipped Mario Paint. Fuck you, Zelda. Mario Paint is cool, but it is not very... Oh, hell yeah, we're getting Astrobot music. Mario Paint, cool little thing. To one such as I, who is interested in video game history, it's very cool seeing a very early creation tool attempt, and it's obviously held back by limitations of the time, but there's also definitely actually some cool presentation stuff in this game that I think you can sense the legacy of Mario Paint throughout a bunch of Nintendo's later stuff, particularly Mario Maker, you know. But it's like there's kind of an attitude to this game and a quirkiness that is very unique to it. That being said, I can't really think of a reason to play it unless you just want to get, like, cursory knowledge of how creation tools worked at this time, you know, when they barely existed. I feel like maybe I'm crazy, but I kind of feel like there were not a lot of creation tool games before Mario Paint. There probably were some, but of course I was more of a Kid Pix kind of guy. And I played it with the SNES mouse. Even with the SNES mouse, it's kind of rough. It's like, you know, especially considering that all of that is like hardware that is 20, 30 years old at this point. So the rolling ball mouse, as much longevity as that device has, it's not gonna work perfectly. And like, I had the little stupid mouse pad for it, the official mouse pad, but I kind of feel like you need, like, a lot of people aren't going to have that mouse pad, and you need a really specific, like, kind of texture of surface to really get that rollerball mouse to work. So it's just kind of rough, and it's like not even a normal mouse pad I think would work. I don't think that would be an appropriate texture. I don't know. So there's a lot of roughness to it. There's really no reason to play it. I played it because I'm a funny streamer, and I did, you know, it's a little tiny dip into gaming history, which of course I always like, but it's not exactly worth playing. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna give Mario Paint a no. I'm sorry to say, it is cool. You gotta hand it to him, you gotta acknowledge the legacy of Mario Paint, but in terms of actual enjoyment, it's very low. It's so slow. Using the fill tool takes like an hour because it has to draw each pixel individually. It's just so limited. A lot of the stamps and the texture options that you can use are so like ugly, but it's, you know, for a SNES creation tool, it's feature rich, and it's kind of nuts that it has like animation technology in it, for instance, however rudimentary it may be. So what is a good number for this? Like, I don't know, like a 3. It feels so bad because I had a great time streaming it, but there's a huge difference between streaming a game and playing it on your own. I'm having a ton of fun just fiddling with this bug. it's very fun. Let's give it a 3. Let's give it a 3, and I'm sorry. It was like, I don't know. I know that this, I always say, like, oh, this list is like my personal enjoyment of the game, but I feel like you want to divorce the whole like streamer thing from that. Like, again, there's certain games that are fun or funny to stream, but that aren't necessarily like fun in their own right. Okay. Anyway, sorry, I had to be brutal. I had to be a little bit brutal to, I'm just a little bug, don't eat me, please! Let's move on to Echoes of Wisdom. This was, honestly, quite the disappointment, and I did not have super high hopes going into it. Uh-oh, Deltarune music, we gotta skip that, buddy. We're gonna get DMCA'd. I don't know if this will go through, honestly. I feel like we'll get DMCA'd there, too. The fuck is this? Glacier Pool Water Blue. We'll give this a shot. This is some vaporwave, but it must be good. It's on the Jams playlist. Sure, fuck it. Let's go with this. It's like a whole album? No. It's a half-hour-long EP. I'll just skip it after a certain amount of time. Yeah, Deltarune and Undertale music gets you DMCA'd in Biden's America. It's kind of fucked up. I don't think it's going to change in Trump's America, though, sadly, also. Echoes of Wisdom, pretty disappointing. I didn't have high hopes, but going into it, I was kind of like, okay. You know, they kind of cooked with this idea. It's kind of like, almost like Mosalina. It's like an immersive sim. But after playing it, it's like, it's basically a pretty box-standard Zelda game with this sort of unique combat traversal gimmick that isn't really fleshed out well. It's just, there were a lot of little things about this game that just felt like a letdown. Like there was so much potential for it to be really cool and fun, and then it was just kind of like, you know, we can't have too much crazy fun in a Nintendo game. We can't break too many barriers. We can't, you know, go too crazy with our mechanics. We can't change it up too much from a normal Zelda game. So we need to, it's like they had way too much restraint. This is a game where I would have loved to have seen just a bunch of wild ideas. But it was like, yeah, you go to the areas and you help the fucking Zoras and you beat the bosses, and there's way too much fucking dialogue. The dialogue is very modern Nintendo goo goo gaga. Why am I reading this? There's no point to fucking even listening to most of this Pokemon-ass dialogue. That was really disappointing. There were definitely a lot of little moments of fun, but it was like, it felt like it could have been so much more. It feels like so much wasted potential to have this really cool, unique idea and then to dial it back so much. It's just a shame. And the whole system of the echoes could have been so much more finely tuned. The menu for accessing the echoes is obnoxious. Everybody hates that menu. I don't know what they were thinking with that. Like, there must be a better way. There must be a better way to do something like that. It was just a shame. It was just a shame. I was just, like, sad by the end of this game because I was like, it's acceptable, but it's yet another on the pile of, like, modern Nintendo games where I'm like, it kind of feels like they're just riding on their successes rather than really trying new stuff. It's like we're in classic, comfortable Nintendo era right now. I'm shaking the table. Where they're like confident, you know, they're coming off the heels of the massive success of the Switch, and they're just like, the attitude that I get, at least, and I know it's a corporation, you know, it's not one guy or anything, but the attitude I get is kind of like, yeah, just keep making stuff and people will buy it, you know, instead of like, okay, we really need to fucking innovate and like do new things. I don't know, and maybe this game was born from the seed of some kind of idea of like doing new things, but honestly, in the end, it kind of just feels like they were like, oh, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are like really well received. What if we try to take mechanics like that and put them in, you know, a top-down Zelda style? And it just didn't really work out well. It was sad. This game made me sad. Would not really recommend. It was by no means a terrible experience, but it was just like eating saltine crackers most of the time. It was just like, it was like eating saltine crackers when there's like a pane of bulletproof glass right next to you that has like a sumptuous feast right behind it, and you're not allowed to have that feast. You can only eat the crackers. And Shigeru Miyamoto is standing there with his arms folded going, yeah. It's a strange, I feel like the analogy maybe fell apart there. Shigeru Miyamoto actually famously didn't even work on the game. This was the first Zelda game that he was not credited on. What's a number? What's a number for this one? Honestly, I streamed it all the way through and it was very long. And I did enjoy parts of it, but this has got to be like a 4 for me, frankly. Let's do... Conditional formatting is always weird when you're like copy-pasting blocks in, so I'm just gonna copy and paste from Donkey Kong 64. That's right, Echoes of Wisdom is the exact same score as Donkey Kong 64. That's how bad. Was it that boring? I mean, I'm not trying to devalue the experience of anybody who played it and enjoyed it more than I did, but like, did you play it? It was quite boring. It was quite dull. What kind of analogy is food, cuckold, and voyeurism? Food cuckold. That's just a funny phrase. Okay, so everything up here is cleared out. Fucking Mario Bros got a 2, by the way. I'm sure plenty of people, the reason we've got like Anonymous Dingo and shit in this spreadsheet is because a lot of people are looking for their favorite games and being like, actually, honestly, I think a lot of my scores are pretty reasonable. Like, and I mean, it's my personal experience with the game, but like, I don't know. Echoes of Wisdom 4, I guess, is a little brutal, but like, it's how I feel. It's how I feel. You gotta bump DK64 to a 5 so that it's better than Echoes of Wisdom. No. At DK64, I mean, again, have you played it? Dread got a 9. I'm good. Dread got a 9? What? I mean, it was good. That was a definitely in the upper echelon of the modern Nintendo scene, but 9? I feel like in my heart that's an 8.5. A lot of these review scores are gonna change depending on like the day that I do the review, you know. Okay, Project Plus. Played this with Kanjin. There's gonna be a video coming out on this game quite soon, I think. Probably this upcoming weekend. This is a Brawl mod that's basically like when PM died, Project Plus was reborn from the ashes. And it's just like, you know, a big like enhancement and sort of competitiveness enhancer for Super Smash Bros. Brawl. I'm not a competitive player. I'm not the type to wave dash. I mean, I can wave dash. I'm not really very good at implementing it, nor do I really try frequently. Or anything. Apparently you can meteor cancel in this game, which would have been great to know before Kanjin stomped me into the bottom blast zone about 800 times that stream. I could have at least tried to meteor cancel. But all the like advanced tech and balance stuff is frankly lost on me as a casual player. Just, you know, it's just the way it is. The new characters are cool. That's something me as a casual enjoyer, I as a casual enjoyer can really appreciate. And they feel official. I mean, some of them, I think one of them's like, they got like Mewtwo and Roy who like were in Melee but not Brawl, right? And those, they had a blueprint to work off of. But then you look at shit like Knuckles, they put Knuckles in that game and it just looks official. It just looks like if Knuckles was in Brawl. It's kind of impressive. Fuck ton of stages, fuck ton of like quality of life stuff. I really enjoy, again, as a casual, the automatic L canceling option. That shit kind of blew my mind when Kanjin was like, bro, you gotta play Project Plus, you gotta play Project Plus. And I was kind of like, you know, how good could it possibly be? And then he like, we were testing out the game and he opened it up and he was like, now go into the options and turn on auto L cancel. And I was like, what do you mean it's got auto L cancel? And my mind was blown. It's very cool. Again, I'm gonna say it for the 50th time, as a casual enjoyer, I could really only glean so much enjoyment from it, but it is a very, very cool mod. I would definitely play this over Brawl basically any day of the week, unless I was looking for specific Brawl nostalgia. Or I'm trying to play like Subspace or some shit. Actually, I don't know. Does Project Plus do anything with Subspace? Maybe it does. I reviewed Overwatch. If you go to this spreadsheet, it's at the bottom. If you want to see my score, I guess I can show you. 8.5. Yes, recommendation. Asterisk. This game no longer exists. You can't play Overwatch anymore. Online games. Yippee! Okay, Project Plus. Sure, that gets a recommend from me. Particularly for Smash fans, obviously. Also, in PM and Project Plus, Mr. Game & Watch is a top tier, which gotta hand it to him. I think they cooked with that one. What do we give it, though? What kind of stuff what did I give Melee? And then Smash Wii U is 8. Smash for Wii U got an 8 out of 10. That's so funny. Let's give it a good old 8.5. You know, actually, let's give it an 8. Let's give it an 8. Let's give it an 8. We're gonna copy-paste that Wii U score over. It's good. I'm not super into Smash these days. I think if I had played this, I mean, I played PM in my very early Smash days. But I think after a bunch of, you know, in the throes of my, like, full-on Smash days, I probably would have loved this a lot more. Nowadays, I'm kind of like, it's cool. What are these games sorted by? Thank you so much for asking. complete nonsense. The games at the top are Nintendo games because that's just how I started to sort. I was like, I've tried to loosely group things by series. So I was like, okay, you know, first series off the top of my head, Mario. We got a bunch of Mario games. I'll put all the Mario games together. Okay, well, what about stuff like Yoshi's Island, Yoshi's Story, you know, and a bunch of like spin-offs and shit? Well, I'll put them next to that. Okay, well, what about like Wario Land? Okay, I'll put that series next to the Mario games. Okay, what about like super spin-offs like the RPGs and Mario Kart and shit? Okay, I'll put that next to all the other ones. And it just kind of ended up having, it like snowballed into, the beginning is an enormous Nintendo section. And whenever I play a Nintendo game, I now add it to the Nintendo section at the top. And then everything else is kind of unsorted. There's just like, whenever there's a series, I, you know, group them together. But besides that, there's really no rhyme or reason to it. It's a loosely chronological order. Yeah, it's chaos. It's total fucking chaos. What is a Super Mario game? I promise this is an interesting question. And then you watch the video and it's not an interesting question. Is this the next one? Kirby Dream Land? Okay. Kirby's Dream Land, gotta say... Oh, I'll get to Baby Pac-Man, don't you worry. I'm fit to review it now. When I get to it, I will review it. Kirby's Dream Land, this is a goated Game Boy game. It's a nostalgic classic for me, so I'm a little biased. And I think there's multiple remakes of this. Nightmare in Dreamland is actually Kirby's Adventure remake. But there's a remake of Kirby's Dream Land, I think, in Kirby Superstar or Superstar Ultra or some shit. There's like, one game has as one of its many features a remake of Dreamland, and I don't know if that remake is preferable to play to this one. This one certainly has some elements to it that are kind of dated, as, you know, an OG Game Boy game. But really on the lineup, like the Game Boy, I gotta be honest, the Game Boy is kind of a shovelware system a lot of the time. There's some good games on it, but even a lot of the best Game Boy games have the drawback of being Game Boy games. However, Kirby's Dream Land is like S tier in terms of Game Boy games. It is in the upper echelon of the poopy shovelware console that is the Game Boy. So, great music. Everybody knows Kirby's got great music. It's just a very cute little simple story. This is from back in the days of video games where it could just be like, yeah, Kirby's out to save the food. King Dedede stole all the food, and Kirby's gonna go beat up King Dedede and bring all the food back to the people of the village. And it's like, wow, there's your plot. There's your plot for your video game, and it's so pure and innocent and sort of fun. I like all the little cute animations. There's not a lot of, like, you know, I guess there's not really cutscenes, but there's little animations that play, you know, at the beginnings of levels and at the end of the game and stuff like that. All that stuff is super well done, especially for the Game Boy. The levels are fun. It's kind of baby easy, but there is a hard mode if you want extra challenge. And, you know, Kracko and King Dedede usually take a few lives off of me when I play through this anyway. Yeah, I don't know. There's just a ton of charm. There's a ton of charm to it. It's a very, very cool game. If you're interested in gaming history, this is a great one to just check out. You can boot it up, play it in like an hour, maybe 2, for your first playthrough, and be like, yep, I now know that, and that was fun and pleasant. I am better off for having experienced that. So that's gonna get a big fat yes from me. I'll give this one like an 8. 8.5? 8.5 is such a sweet spot for a lot of these, like, Nintendo games, like classic Nintendo games, where it's just like, there's nothing like super special about them, but they're just solid. They're just good. 8.5 is kind of my 7 out of 10. You know how IGN, like, famously defaults to 7 out of 10 for a lot of games? But I do think that if you look at, like, the diversity of the scores on my list, it's just, you know, the Nintendo section's got a lot of 8.5s because Nintendo just is they're not always sticking to the standard of quality, but they have this kind of like specific standard of quality that a lot of their games adhere to, and they never really go super far beyond, at least in my personal opinion. And then, you know, you got your occasional like Super Metroid. That's one where it's like, that's a game that feels slightly elevated beyond just a really good Nintendo game. And that gets a 9, and apparently Zero Mission and Dread also get 9s. I probably would have lowered those a little bit. Those probably honestly both would have been 8.5s if I had done those right now, but I don't know. How many 10s? Let's look it up. This might get some names. It says there's 11. Katamari Damacy Reroll. Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights, because I was gonna say, are there any games with 10 in the name? There's one, which received a score of 2. Cuphead, perfect 10 in my opinion. There's another one with 10 in the name, but that was a 7 out of 10. That was honestly a pretty cool game. Pizza Tower 10, Mosalina 10, Street Fighter 2010, The Final Fight, not yet reviewed. Pikmin 1, perfect 10 in my opinion. Punch-Out Wii, a perfect 10 in my opinion. Portal, a perfect 10 in my opinion. Yeah, so not exactly 11, but Dr. Mario is no longer a perfect 10, I'm sorry. I lowered it, I calmed the fuck down, I bumped it down 2 entire numbers. Yeah, in a way it is kind of nice that I wait a super long time before reviewing games, so I don't have that like recency bias. I have to wonder if recency bias played into those Metroid scores. One sec. My ear is itchy. Hey, Dr. Mario is a fucking classic, but I kind of had an epiphany. Dr. Mario 64 exists, and it's better. So, how could Dr. Mario be a 10? Maybe when I review Dr. Mario 64, I'll give that a 10. Doubtful, but yeah, my integrity has been ruined, truly. Okay, Kirby's Adventure. If Kirby's Dream Land is a Game Boy classic, then Kirby's Adventure is an NES classic. It's definitely one of the best ones. It is marred by technical issues. This game gobbles up inputs like I gobble up stuffing on Thanksgiving Day. Holy shit, was it frustrating sometimes fighting like the more challenging parts of this game, when it would just be like, yeah, I just pressed the button and nothing happened. And this is like this is not John's, this is an established thing. There are fixes out there for this, and apparently it's like there's horrible slowdown and horrible input eating tendencies. And I seem to remember people saying that both of those issues were fixed on the 3DS Virtual Console version of the game. So if you have access to that, maybe check that version out. I can't attest to that, but that's just something worth noting. There's also, I tried to implement a fix for the input eating, but I honestly don't think it worked. Somebody was like, yeah, I don't think the mod like went through. I don't think it took, because there was supposed to be like some sort of visual difference on like the title screen or whatever, and it just didn't happen. So obviously if I was able to install the mod that fixes the thing and then get gaslit into thinking that it fixed the issue, it's probably not that bad of an issue, but it was frustrating. But the levels and animations and music and creativity on display in Kirby's Adventure is amazing. For an NES game, it shines. It's like the game barely runs because it was so ambitious for the NES. Tons of just really cool moments, memorable levels. It really is an adventure. How's the remake on GBA in comparison? I haven't played it, but I'm sure it's probably good at the very least. I've honestly heard very little about it, so I can't make even the slightest bit of knee-jerk judgment there. So Kirby's Adventure, recommend. I'm gonna put an asterisk. Input system fixing mod? This is not a great sentence. It's like saying play it on 3DS Virtual Console. It's like, the 3DS doesn't exist anymore, but you know, and emulation of it got more difficult recently. Let's give this one, honestly, Kirby's Adventure, it's like, it might be the best NES game. But what number, man? I'm honestly gonna give it, I know I was just like, Metroid Dread got a 9, but honestly, this is a 9er for me. Yeah, I had to put Beat City next to the Rhythm Heaven games. I mean, where else am I gonna put it? But it's so funny, because all the Rhythm Heaven games, of course, got really high scores, and then Beat City with a 2. Yeah, emulate a 3DS that then emulates an NES game. So based. Okay, Kirby's Dream Land 2. This one is considered by many people to be a low point of, like, classic Kirby games. I can definitely see why people think that, but I honestly think it's, and this is what I heard from most people, is like, it may be, to some people, the worst Kirby game, but Kirby has a pretty high standard of quality. Being the worst one doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad game. Kind of Dark Souls 2 kind of situation. So it was still very fun. I like all the animal buddies. There was a bunch of like weird shit. This is the first one to not be directed by Masahiro Sakurai. It was instead Kirby dev other guy. And you can definitely tell there's just like a difference in the vibes of like the levels and stuff. The game is very cruel at times, and there are points where it feels like a troll game, like I'm being trolled while I'm holding the controller. There were just parts where I was like, man, this is like difficult and mean and fucked up. It was a little jarring, especially when I got to the tits room. There's also tits in this one. Dark Souls 2 is the Kirby's Dream Land 2 of Dark Souls games. So it's a little rough around the edges. The whole thing where the final boss is inaccessible until you get all the rainbow drops, and getting all the rainbow drops is like kind of ridiculous. It's kind of a ridiculous huge puzzle that comprises several smaller puzzles. It's definitely an interesting idea. I can see how that would give a game a ton of longevity on the Game Boy back in the day, you know, if you only have like 1 or 2 games. But playing it nowadays, that aspect of it is a huge pain in the ass, and I feel like only the upper echelon of dedicated Kirby fans will be actually getting those rainbow drops. The ending looked cool, the final boss looked cool. It kind of was similar to Nightmare in Kirby's Adventure. I think I can already tell that over the course of the Kirby series, my biggest issue going through them is going to be that they're all really similar, which is, it's a good thing and a bad thing sometimes. I didn't even really talk about the fact that Dreamland doesn't have copy abilities and is still fun. But then Adventure and Dreamland 2 do have copy abilities, and that shit is crazy. Like, especially in Dreamland 2, when you start having these synergies of copy abilities with animals, that shit was so dope. Seeing, like, you can just mix and match, like, oh, here's what happens when you have the stone power up while you're inside the fish. That was just so cool, and I'm sure there's plenty that I just never even saw, because there's gotta be so many. Yeah, oh my god, somebody said that especially the modern games are kind of formulaic, but still pretty good. There's that whole, like, I want to say, like, the modern era of, like, Kirby games. Just all the fucking 3D modeled 2.5D platformer Kirby games on, like, the 3DS and the Switch just all blend together in my head in a haze. The Star Allies, Planet Robobot. I guess there was, like, Superstar... No, there was... Fuck, don't tell me. There was a remake it was like, but it wasn't Superstar Ultra. Was it Superstar, like, Ultra Deluxe? Was it another Superstar remake? No way, right? Fuck, what was it, actually? I don't remember. Triple Deluxe. That's what I'm thinking of. Right? Actually, am I crazy? I'm looking it up. Kirby Triple Deluxe. What's like the modern remake Kirby game that looks like that, but it's a remake? You are thinking of a game that doesn't exist. I'm certain this happened. I mean, this is all going to show how much these fucking modern Kirby games blend into each other. Just look up, like, Kirby series. Return to Dreamland Deluxe is what I am thinking of, chat. I found it. I don't know how it took us so long to, like, get here. The game does exist. Return to Dreamland Deluxe, the most recent Kirby release. Wild. So let me see here, though. Because Return to Dreamland was on like the DS or the 3DS or some shit, right? Oh god. No, it was on the Wii. I'm sorry, I'm sure there's plenty of information now in chat, but I'm just looking at Wikipedia. Return to Dreamland was on the Wii, and then Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe is on the Switch now. Okay, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, wee. Chat literally out here unironically going wee all the way home. Cringe. Anyway, we got off topic here. Dreamland 2. It's kind of tough for a Kirby game. It's kind of, there's a few parts where your balls may be crushed. But it's not like unplayable, and it's got all the joys of the previous Kirby games. It's got the cool-ass copy abilities. The animals are kind of fun. They're kind of clunky and weird sometimes. There's aspects of the level design where I'm like, sometimes it felt like it was giving me a random animal buddy and then putting me in an environment that seemed distinctly suited to one of the animal buddies. And it's like, why did you do that? Like, there would be so many times where it's like, oh, you get the fish randomly, and then you're in the cloud zone, where the fish is just useless. It's, like, worse than useless. And I'm like, what's the fucking point of this? I guess one of those is involved with the rainbow drop puzzle. But it just felt like it felt sloppy. I don't know. But it was fun. Definitely an enjoyable game. The music was a little, like, less good, I want to say. I don't know if it's, like, the same composer or what. Listen, guys, as much as I love Around the World, gotta be one of my favorite songs of all time, I'm gonna have to skip it. Sometimes when I'm streaming, my mouse cursor will disappear, by the way. And I don't know what causes that, or how to fix it. Anyone else ever have this happen? Like, my mouse cursor, I'm like, look at the numbers on the left here. I'm like moving my cursor up and down. I'm like clicking on things, but it's just gone. Oh, and now it's back. It's like I moved it around a bunch, I did a ton of things, and then just randomly it came back. Weird. Let's skip. This is Kanye, we will get obliterated. Probably can't go with that. Ween, no. Blank Banshee, there's no way they copyrighted this shit, man. Maybe they did, you know, you don't want to make assumptions. Okay, Kirby's Dream Land 2. Yes, sure, recommend. Give it like an 8. Just top of my head. I'm not trying to think too hard about the numbers. The numbers barely make sense as it stands. Okay, let's move down. Okay, Secret Agent Wizard Boy and the International Crime Syndicate demo. Long ass title. might even be, is it the longest one currently? I'm pretty sure a Pajama Sam game has got it beat out. Nope, Dr. Langeskov the Tiger and the Terribly Cursed Emerald, a Whirlwind Heist, appears to be the longest one. At time of, looking, yeah. But Pajama Sam 3, You Are What You Eat From Your Head to Your Feet, gets up there. It's pretty close. Yeah, that's... Nobody needs a title that long, man. Shave it off. Cut it off. Okay, so this is a demo of a game. It's supposed to be like a modern send-up of the classic Harry Potter PC and PlayStation games. It's very buggy, and it was hard for me to tell how much of the bugginess was from the multiplayer. I think there was a lot of issues because Lark and I were doing online multiplayer. And obviously it's a demo, there's probably going to be a ton of stuff that gets fixed in the future. But the demo was very buggy, but it was one of those games, it was like a Kusoge, where the glitchiness was kind of part of the fun. The one thing was like the physics objects stuttering as they moved around was just terrible, but I think that was just online connectivity issues, you know. I don't think that's gonna be... maybe I should just like boot up the game single player just to see if that stuff still exists. It would be relatively easy to check, but no, here we are. I'm not gonna do it. Other videos don't seem to have that. Okay. So I will definitely be checking out the full game. I'm gonna go ahead and say like no on the recommendation, but just on the qualifier that it's a demo, and the full game will probably be, you know, much more feature-rich and complete. But there was a lot of funny stuff. It's just like a funny little like sandbox. It's kind of like a Hitman style, like mission-based third-person action game. Listen, Gorillas, I love you, but we can't be listening to that. Listen, Gorillas, I love you, but we can't be listening to that. Here we go. It was very funny. It's obviously like comedy first, and it has that kind of sim quality to it where, and like somebody said, slight goat sim vibes. It's like the real fun to be had is just in messing around with your horribly broken, ridiculous abilities and the pretty decent amount of like interconnected systems at play. Like the whole thing where there's like potion ingredients and you can make potions and you can duplicate the potions, and the more you duplicate the potions, the greater the effect is of the potion, and you can do all sorts of jank shit. It was very fun to mess around with. I hope the final game is like just polished enough to fix some of the more egregious issues without being so polished that it's not totally broken still. So this demo, I mean, honestly, I had a blast. I had a really fun time playing it, but there were definitely things that got it down, particularly the online issues. So I'm gonna go with an 8 for now. I know it's so silly, it's like, oh man, like, this like shitpost demo game gets an 8, and then a bunch of other like really polished games get 8s too, but it's my personal enjoyment. It's not a ranking of the game's objective quality. It's just my feelings. The numbers, I always want to preempt any, you know, rage that might get directed at me. The numbers are not meant to be thought about super hard. How much else do we got here? We got the FNAFs that I played. We've got Quake, funny. Silent Hill 2, which I finally finished, holy shit. And then all these. UFO 50, I might skip for now, but I don't think my opinion on UFO 50 is going to develop or change very much in the remaining, like, 3 or 4 streams that we're probably gonna have of it, so maybe I will. And then we got some Sonic stuff. And then these, I honestly don't even think we're gonna get to this today. I'm really sorry, Lisa the Painful fans. This would be, I think next stream, I'll try to do, like, the visual novel and quirky Earthbound-styled RPG review stream. We'll see. We'll see how all this goes. I'm honestly already, my voice just gets tired just talking a whole stream, you know? What's this? Oh, this is Lorne. I don't want to... Maybe I should be, like, looking for game soundtracks instead of just going on shuffle mode. I kind of didn't realize how much... I mean, I did, but I didn't really actively think about how much non-video game music is on here. Okay, let's get some fucking Dust Force OST in here, man. Turn it off, shuffle mode, and then later we can skip to some different stuff. Okay, Five Nights at Freddy's 3. It's funny, the first two FNAF games both got a 6.5 and a no out of me. Because they're interesting games, but they're not my favorite by any means. They've got really distinct flaws. I appreciate them for their uniqueness and how much, you know, at the time, they were really pioneering this, like, weird new style of game. Not that I think it's a style of game that really has much, like, to it. There's not, like, it doesn't really have legs as a concept, which is why it's so kind of funny that there's just so many FNAF games now and so many games that are, like, you know, trying to do a similar kind of thing. But this whole, like, surveillance tower defense horror game is, like, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool idea. And there's a lot of cool things about the execution of the first couple of games. But really, honestly, guys, like, what little I enjoyed about the first two games really just drops off with the third game. I really don't find it compelling at all. I know it's like, you know, the first game had its own gimmick of, like, just the FNAF format. The second game had the trailer-defining gimmick of there's no doors. You can't shut doors to keep animatronics out anymore. And that, I felt like, already was kind of, like, muddying the concept. It was, like, the relative simplicity, and I know the first game, the animatronics can pull some bullshit to get into your office, but for the most part, it was like, if an animatronic is outside your door, you shut the door, you keep an eye on Foxy, like, that's just about it. But then Five Nights at Freddy's 2 kind of introduced these very nebulous concepts of, like, oh, maybe flashing your flashlight will help. Maybe, who knows, you know, the game doesn't really distinctly tell you how these rules work. I guess it tells you, you know, to the toy animatronics, put the mask on, but that's about it, I feel like. And to me, it's just no fun. It's like this style of gameplay is already something I don't find terribly compelling or enjoyable. And it's like, on top of that, trying to figure out some kind of, like, meta puzzle about the behavior of the animatronics. It just doesn't grab me. And the whole gimmick with FNAF 3 is there's one guy that you're trying to, like, you know, stay away from. And there's a bunch of little, like, hallucinations and shit here and there. But really the only threat is there's this one animatronic walking around. But I just feel like so much is lost in that, and it's, like, simultaneously kind of boring and overwhelming and stressful, because it feels like there's only so much you can do. I'm sure there's plenty of, like, advanced techniques to, like, understand, you know, it's all about, like, listening for audio cues and a bunch of different shit. You know, the AI tries to trick you in a multitude of different ways. There's a bunch of strategy, I'm sure, that you can apply to it, but it's just, like, at a basic level, it's not very compelling to me. Oh, right. Autoplay doesn't work unless you're on shuffle. Because YouTube playlists. Okay, what if we put on No Straight Roads? Here we go. So, FNAF 3, and then on top of it all, I think a lot of what made the first two FNAF games very uncanny and spooky is the fact that the animatronics are, like, uncanny. They look strange. They're not just, like, a gruesome horror monster, basically, but then FNAF 3 onward, it was like, bring in the gruesome horror monsters, and it's like, well, now we're having that effect. I've said in the past, like, horror is always so cringe to me, because it's just like, bro, I know you're trying to scare me, just stop. Like, and I know that sounds so stupid, but it's like, subtlety and nuance are really important in horror, at least for me. And there's just so much horror these days, and you know, in particular in stuff like FNAF 3 and FNAF 4, where it's like, stop trying so hard to be scary, and you will be way scarier, you know? Like, just having, like, the more that the animatronics in the series got, like, decrepit and had, like, scary teeth, big smiles, scary teeth, I'm so scary, and it's like, fucking kill me, I'm cringing out of my gourd right now. Like, and I'm not, I don't mean to be mean, this is just my personal opinion, but, like, that sort of stuff is just so exhausting to me, and it's not scary at all. It's just cringe. It just makes me fucking cringe. Maybe that's the real horror. So, honestly, FNAF 3, I didn't really find it to be fun. I didn't really find it to be compelling. The little stupid, like, like, pixel art minigames, they look so bad, and, like, they're so, like, so OMG, so retro. Anybody remember when you could see the squares in video games? And it's like, they just look like ass. I think the ones in the previous games honestly looked better because they had kind of an Atari look to them. They suck. Honestly, I really hated this game. It was like it was like the first two games already didn't get a recommendation from me, but I did like some things about them. But then with this one, it's like, there's like no reason to play it, in my opinion. And like, it was kind of cool, you know, oh, each one of these games, they add like a little bit of like story and a bunch of like cool little like hints and stuff and little secrets and things like that, and that stuff's cool, but just at its most basic level, it just was not very enjoyable to me. Let's give it like it honestly is like a 2 out of 10. I really disliked it. Let's go up and steal this 2 from maybe Mario Bros. No, EnviroBear 2000. That's right, guys. FNAF 3 is as good in my mind, or as enjoyable as EnviroBear 2000. And then Ultimate Custom Night, I basically just threw this on for laughs. There were some people commenting on the video and in the chat, in the Twitch chat of the live stream for this, who I think were upset that I did not give this game a fair shake. And I'm sorry to those people, but the intent was never to give it a fair shake. It was always just gonna, I was always just gonna go into it as a joke. I had seen, I think, Stir play this before, and it's hilarious, and I'm sure that if you're like a huge fan of FNAF, and if you really find that like camera surveillance, tower defense kind of gameplay really compelling, then this is like your ultimate playground of, you know, all your favorites. If you love the animatronics, you love the gameplay style, you love solving all the different little like animatronic AI tendencies and stuff, then I guess this is like the perfect game. But it's, to one such as I, it's just noise, basically. And it is very funny how chaotic it gets. I think the thing that most people are going to do with this game, since it's free, is install it, crank up all the animatronics to the highest difficulty level, and just see how chaotic it is. But that's good for like a very momentary laugh, and then you're out of there. And like, people kept telling me, multiple people were saying to me, like, bro, like, you don't get what's compelling about this game. You're supposed to like turn on just like 1 or 2, you know, a few animatronics and get used to them at their lower AI levels, and then work your way up. And it's like, that you have to, in order to do that, you have to be at the starting point of, I like this game some amount, and there's just nothing that's really compelling to me about this at this point, especially just considering how, I mean, tonally it's all over the place now. It's like, tonally it's essentially been ruined, the vibe of the first couple of games, which was what was really like holding me in those games, honestly. The tone is just kind of botched, and like, it doesn't feel like they were trying to make it be like a super scary, serious game. But it's just like that element of it is just not in this anymore. The gameplay is so like complicated. it's so structureless. Like, I feel like maybe I'm crazy, but is it not basically just a sandbox game? I can't think of a whole lot of other games that just go, here's like the main menu is just a huge screen of settings of how you want your game experience to be. Like, all the minutia of the mechanics of all the enemies that you'll be fighting, you can just control all of that. And it's like, going into that, it's like, okay, so in order to like enjoy this fully, I need to have like the discipline of, okay, we're gonna like ease ourselves in with like a few animatronics, and then we're gonna like work our way up in their AI difficulty level, and it's like, I just don't care enough. I'm sorry. It's, yeah, I don't know. Not a big recommend for me, frankly. Let's get some new music in here. Katamari, Disco Prince, boom, baby. Somebody said it's not really a game, TBH. I mean, it is. It's just a very odd structure. There's presets, are there? I didn't realize. Maybe there's a little more structure to it, but it's just it's a strange thing. Could only have come out of the FNAF franchise. I don't know. Honestly, I want to say I enjoyed it a little more than FNAF 3. Because FNAF 3 was just dismal and boring. And poopy. I'm sorry. Which sucks, because I know a lot of people really love FNAF 3. But and that's, you know, that's the thing that you get with games that change things up significantly and take risks. It's gonna be divisive. I'm gonna give this a 2.5. I don't know, again, the numbers barely matter. Let's go all the way down. Quake is next, I believe. Oh, wait. We've got something very important to do here, actually. There's a little game called Baby Pac-Man that I recently played the actual arcade machine of. When I first streamed this, it was just an emulation of the arcade part of the game. It is an arcade/pinball hybrid, where the top screen is Pac-Man, you're going around a maze, and then there's little tunnels. You can go down the tunnels, and you go into the pinball cabinet part of it. And you knock the pinball around, and you can do stuff in the pinball cabinet in order to get the power-ups in the arcade machine part of it. So, it's bad. It is bad, but it's very cool. It's like, I mean, this is one where it's like, recommending it, what does that even mean? Like, are you gonna go to a venue that has Baby Pac-Man at it just to play Baby Pac-Man? I did that, but I'm stupid, and this is my life, so I understand if people don't necessarily want to do that. It is cool. Don't get me wrong, you gotta hand it to them, it's a neat idea, and there are several pinball arcade hybrid machines of varying types. This is just one of several. And it's a cool enough concept. I can definitely see how it would be exciting, you know, going into an arcade and being... By the way, we were looking at the release date for this game. It came out 9 months after Ms. Pac-Man. So, like, it was like a full term. The dev time was the pregnancy for Baby Pac-Man. That's my canon, at least. And they had to establish, you know, there's a pinball machine called Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man in order to establish that Baby Pac-Man was not born out of wedlock. But honestly, Baby Pac-Man, it's a pretty rudimentary Pac-Man and a pretty rudimentary arcade or pinball machine. Not a lot going on, not a lot of bells and whistles. When I was playing it, the ball actually got stuck at one point. It's just, I mean, it's kind of from before the, like, heyday of pinball machines, so it didn't really have a lot of what makes the best pinball machines really great. It's not gonna get a high review, it's not even really gonna get a recommendation. If you're in a venue that has Baby Pac-Man, I guess check it out. What are you gonna lose, 75 cents? But it's not very good. It's not very good. Let's give it like a 3. Better than FNAF 3. And let's just delete this. I'm just gonna type out what I already said here. Wow, my typing is on point. I'm really glad you guys can't see what I'm typing here because I'm typing so sloppily. Okay. So that's Baby Pac-Man. Sorry it's a disappointment that it's not very good, but at least we have a definitive review now. Let's go down to Quake, right? Yeah. So Quake, very fun, very cool. It was a great follow-up, just for me personally, from Doom. Obviously, it was also financially and culturally a great follow-up to Doom in the context of the world at large. It definitely had its lulls, just like lulls, OMG, Omega lull. There were definitely parts of this game where I was like, oh, I kind of want to kill myself right now. But it was very cool in the parts that worked well. The weapons are all very cool and satisfying. The vibe of the game is very cool. Just the way that it's I don't know, it's like fantasy, sci-fi, cosmic horror all mashed up together. You're fighting like knights and demons and strange like alien looking things. It's very cool, and apparently the rest of the Quake series kind of ditched that vibe and went more in favor of like a standard sci-fi game, which is a bit of a shame because I think Quake's vibe is one of its most alluring aspects. It just feels unique, and the music by Nine Inch Nails is of course very cool. It's very atmospheric, very dark. At times it kind of puts me to sleep, I'm not gonna lie, but the action and the atmosphere are really, really cool. This is definitely gonna get a recommend from me. Again, particularly if you're like me and like playing older games. Let's give it, like, I don't know, Doom got an 8. I shouldn't really be comparing these scores. Doom got an 8. I honestly feel like Quake... I'm gonna go with my gut and give it a 7.5. Didn't like it quite as much as Doom, I think. But still really, really cool and worth checking out. The sound design, in particular, is super fucking cool. I love something that really... Whenever I just think of Quake, I think about... And does anybody else get this? The pinging sound of the grenades, like, bouncing around on the ground. The little, like, bang, 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 bang. That little sound lives rent-free in my head forever. And I don't really know why. Does anybody else have the same thing? Let me get some new music in here. Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah, I'm glad other people... Bang, bang, bang. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of great sound effects in that game. And, like, cool weapons and shit. And it's got that same kind of, like, cheesy Doom charm. Did Quake let you shoot up and down? Quake is in full 3D. That's, like, its real defining characteristic. And especially, like, the way... It was sort of a pioneer in the world of 3D games because, and I'm not a programmer, but to my understanding, it had this revolutionary new way of rendering 3D models in a way that was way easier on a processor, I think, and allowed for, because, you know, if you look at a bunch of, like, really early 3D games on, like, the PlayStation and shit, there's this kind of, like, floatiness. I mean, there's floating point imperfections or whatever, slight miscalculations and shit.
That's not really what I'm talking about. But like, there's a slight kind of like jitteriness and floatiness, and everything kind of feels like it's underwater in a lot of early 3D games. But Quake feels, and I mean, I played the modern like port of it, so I guess maybe it felt worse on older computers, but it runs so smooth. The action is so smooth. Everything's so fast. It's just nice. And to those of you who don't know, Quake's way of rendering 3D models is something that has been used in so many 3D games going forward. Famously in Half-Life Alyx, in all of Valve's games where there's a flickering light effect, they reuse the same exact flickering light effect that was written for Quake 1 in fucking 1625. They still use it in Half-Life Alyx because it was just like, the seeds of the Quake engine are still in our code, even 20 years in the future. And why change what ain't broke? It's the Vidya equivalent of the Amen break. Yeah, it's like Quake's DNA. It's like the Genghis Khan of video games, where like most video games have a little bit of Quake DNA in them. 345 AD when Quake came out. Yeah, you know. Okay, Silent Hill 2. This is, to the world of survival horror enthusiasts, an absolute classic. Genre-defining, some people would say, I believe. Although, you know, Silent Hill 1, I think, fits that a little better, but Silent Hill 2 is a lot of people's favorite Silent Hill game, and I definitely see why. I mean, I've only played 2 of them, and I think I probably liked it more than the original Silent Hill. But look, the original Silent Hill got an 8.5. It's kind of crazy how much I liked that one. Like, it was fun. But then Silent Hill 2, you gotta hand it to them. They really took... Oh, this is one of those cool videos where there's like 3 minutes of silence at the end. Alright, Funky Dealer. This is great Silent Hill 2 music. Silent Hill 2, fantastic ambience, atmosphere, music, story, characters. I love Silent Hill characters so much. Talking about this shit and people are spamming the like more shoe dancing in the chat. They really nailed like most of this game. There were some parts that I found kind of frustrating or annoying. I think all the worst parts of Silent Hill are surrounding like the gameplay and the puzzles. Just every once in a while, I can't... Maybe this is just like a skill issue on my part or something, but I really can't imagine somebody playing through a Silent Hill game and just like breezing through all the puzzles. Like, I know I might have been stupid on a couple of them, but... And a lot of them are really cool and intuitive and are like a puzzle in a very traditional sense in a way that you don't see in a lot of video games nowadays. A lot of them are really, really cool, don't get me wrong, and they got a lot of really cool imagery. But it's just like you're bound to get stuck. I feel like you're bound to get stuck at some point, and getting stuck on a puzzle like that just feels awful. Where you're just like, I don't know what to do, what do I do? And you're like wandering around, and like that rotating stone cube of faces in Silent Hill 2. I didn't realize that if you turned it a certain way, off camera behind you, it opens a door. Like, I just happened to not turn it that way. I turned it a bunch of ways, I turned it every which way, and then I left that little like view of the cube thing. This is not gonna make a lot of sense to people who didn't see it, but I just happened to leave it on a spot where that door wasn't there, and then it was just like, oh, well, you're just screwed until someone tells you what to do, basically. Little moments like that can be irritating, and I don't really know how you fix that, like, in-game hint system, I guess. But maybe, like, manuals and player guides served a bit of a role in that, too. I know I've seen, like, Silent Hill Prima strategy guides and shit like that. But I think obviously the strength is in the story, the cutscenes. This is like a lot of times in video games, at least the ones that I play, and it's not always true, but a lot of the time when it comes to a cutscene, I'm just kind of like, whatever, we'll watch it, I guess. But like, I'm not super excited about it. I'm more excited to get back to gameplay. But in Silent Hill games, it's like when a cutscene shows up, I'm like, oh goody, you know, stuffing popcorn into my mouth, because they're really good, they're really well written, they're really atmospheric and cool. The characters, there's just something about the characters that I really like. They just all feel like there's a very dreamlike, weird quality, like uncanny quality, but they also just feel really real. They just feel like real people. I don't know how to describe it. I just like them. I like them. And the cutscenes are so like well directed and so cool looking, and there's so much like meaning. There's so much meaning packed into everything in those games. Particularly 2. You know, 2 really took the like metaphor aspect of it and ran with it. Because Silent Hill 1, it was like a guy in a spooky city, basically, that's tormenting him, but it doesn't actually... Oh, let's get Starlight in here. I was thinking about Starlight Zone the other day. What was I talking about? I trailed off hard. It's like the first Silent Hill was just like a guy trapped in a spooky city where spooky stuff is happening, and it was really effective spooky stuff, but it didn't really mean much. But then Silent Hill 2, it was like, okay, now we're gonna take this whole concept of the town is this sort of physical manifestation of your own inner demons. And that is just such a juicy concept. There's so much you can do with that. And they did it so well on like basically their first try trying to do something like that, which was really impressive. So I will say, if you're emulating this game, maybe look to get the mod that is like the HD, like widescreen fan patch that fixes a bunch of bugs and a bunch of little issues here and there. I ran into this issue while emulating this game where there's 2 different types of attack. There's like a light attack and a heavy attack, and they are reliant on button press sensitivity. It's like how hard you press the button, and that's something that didn't, for whatever reason, work in my emulator that I was using. And so I kind of had to jury-rig the solution of binding the heavy attack to one button and the light attack to another button, and then basically sacrificing a button on my controller in order to do that, which thankfully the select button's pretty useless in that game, so I used that. But just something to note, I can't... Somebody said, how faithful is the remake? I can't speak on the remake, I haven't played it. But I've heard... People said it's good. People said the remake's good. I've heard some people say, you know, non-positive things about it, but I feel like the reception to that game has been mostly positive, which is cool. I just don't really have... I don't really have a drive to play it, personally. I kind of had an epiphany recently that I just don't really like remakes at all. And that's not to say that I've never enjoyed a remake. It's just like the concept doesn't really appeal to me. Because I like looking at old things. I like seeing things in the context of the period in which they were made. And, you know, sometimes I'm like emulating a game, and I know that's kind of not the same, but I try to keep it as close to the original as, like, comfortably possible. And it's like, I have, like, you know, the Spyro and Crash Bandicoot remade trilogies on Steam, but I think they're just going to sit there and collect dust while I emulate the originals. And I know that's going to seem so backwards to some people, but, like, I don't want the shiny, polished, new, homogenized version of something. I want to see it in the context in which it was originally made. I don't know. So... I don't know if you can expect a Silent Hill 2, nobody even really asks here, but I don't know if you can expect a Silent Hill 2 remake playthrough at least anytime soon, maybe in the future. Maybe it's like I'll play all the classics over like the next like 10 years, and then when I'm a gaming grandpa, I'll play all the remakes. Okay, yeah, upcoming Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. Why would you play that? I just don't even understand why you would play that. Besides, like, the only reason is basically it's more accessible. That's it. Okay, definitely a recommend. This is a game of highs and lows for me. There's some parts of it that just... you know, bumbling around in apartment buildings, dealing with the kind of sloppy combat. This game gives you the option between tank controls and like a more modern kind of control style, and they both have their own issues. I honestly maybe think I should have gone with tank controls, funnily enough, because the issues that I came across when using the like more modern control style, I think were more frustrating than it would have been if I had just used tank controls. Because like tank controls, if you just adapt to them, like people talk about tank controls so much about like, oh, like I wanted to play this game, but it had tank controls. And it's like, did you try for more than 5 minutes? Because it really is not, it doesn't take that much getting used to. Maybe I should have gone with that. All this is to say there are a lot of things I really enjoy about this game and that really stick with me and resonate with me, and there are a lot of things about it that I wish were a little better. But it is definitely a landmark game. I would honestly probably give it a 9. I'll give it a 9. I really like how this game handles mature themes too. Like, it talks about some pretty fucked up shit, man, and acknowledges some pretty fucked up shit. But it does it in a way that feels mature. It's not just like a shitty, like, grindhouse, schlocky horror film that's just trying to, like, shock you. It's just actually it's like actual art that's, like, trying to talk about real things, which is kind of crazy. Like, they cooked with that one. We don't have any music right now. Bro said grindhouse. It was apt. Shut up. Super Sponge. We just had the Bickman video. Got me thinking about Super Sponge. Let's go with Super Sponge, man. Yeah, really, really compelling story in Silent Hill 2. Just like all of it. It's like shocking how much a game like that can have a grip on you through its story. Like, video games absolutely are art, right? This has long been established, but I feel like there's some kind of sauce to Silent Hill 2 that I feel like is barely present in any other video game. It's kind of wild. I don't know. Hard to describe. It's a je ne sais quoi. Okay. Extreme Evolution Drive to Divinity. This was a very weird game. I will say first and foremost that if you are photosensitive in any way, or even prone to like motion sickness, you probably shouldn't play this game. It's very extreme visually. It's like a total acid trip. I feel like this is a game, a lot of times, you know, people will look at something that's like slightly surreal or weird and be like, the guy who made this was on drugs, you know, and that's like a super tasteless, like juvenile kind of outlook on creativity. But this is a game where I'm genuinely like, if the person who made this has never done like DMT or acid in their life, I would be shocked. Like, I'll eat my fucking hat. There's so much about it that feels truly, purely psychedelic. And it's really, really cool. It's kind of like a marble game. It's like... how do I even describe it? It's kind of like a marble game, like Monkey Ball, but you change into a bunch of like different shapes to suit your environment, and it's like a collectathon, basically. And you're collecting these little things, and these things let you transform into different forms that have different uses. And a lot of them are really cool. This game is very like sloppy and loose, but in a way that's good sloppy and good loose, where it's like, it just feels like a very pure like fountain of creativity, where there's a bunch of ideas where I'm like, what the fuck is the point of this weird little form here? Like, what does this actually do? And maybe they don't actually have a use at all, but they're just there because the developer was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll put that in. There's kind of just a fun kind of, again, kind of loose energy to it. And particularly like the structure too. I feel like there's a billion different ways to go through this game and progress using your abilities. There's so many things that you can cheese as well. I remember I accessed like the main ending of the game really early on comparatively because I used one of my abilities to basically clip through a wall. It's really, oh man, some of the abilities are so cool. I would say, oh, just watch the VODs, but you might have a seizure. There's that one polyp that was one of my favorite abilities where you turn into like 10 little balls that just roll around with like really low friction. And it's like if the balls, like they separate, they spread apart, they go to all a bunch of different places. And then when you transform into a different form that's only one thing, it takes the average location of all of those balls and puts you there. So there was something that was inside, like one of the like endings was inside this gigantic like cube that was just like solid matter. And I think they intended for you to have the one that phases through solid matter to get to that. But instead I used the little balls and I surrounded the cube with the balls and then warped to the exact center by transforming into like something else that was a singular object. And I felt so clever for that shit, man, and this game has a ton of shit like that. Just weird solutions. And like it feels intended, like they want you to be able to fuck around this much with these solutions. That being said, the looseness kind of gets me down sometimes. It's, this is what I tell my doctor too. There's a lot of levels, there's a lot of collectibles, there's a lot of forms to get, and a lot of them don't really feel necessary to do. Some levels are better than others. I really appreciate like there's a ton of levels, but also just individual levels have this insane sense of scale to them, where they just feel truly enormous in every way, like just cavernous, huge areas. And because they are huge to a certain degree, and you know, going through the game you get more and more abilities to traverse further distances faster, but like kind of in the middle of the game where you're like reaching some of those enormous fucking areas and you're like, my brain, like I'm feeling cosmic horror because my brain can't even comprehend how fucking huge this all is. And then I could attempt to describe the visual style of this game, but I think I've already done about as good as I can. Just an insane slumgullion of visual effects that definitely seem like if part of the obstacle in platforming in this game is recognizing what is and isn't a platform, because it's so hard to tell sometimes. But you kinda, in a weird way, you kinda shift into a different sort of like mental state while playing this game. It was a really interesting experience, and you kinda adapt to that extreme visual style. It kinda similar to RYM 9000, whatever it was called, that shooter that had the really extreme graphics, but it's kind of like you adapt to it over time, and that kind of feels cool. So definitely an odd game, but if you really like, I mean, this is like an ideal whack game. It's like a full-length whack game, basically. If you really love psychedelic, surreal, strange games, honestly, I mean, I also got just a lot of pure collectathon joy out of this as well. Check us out. But it's not for everyone. It's very experimental. It's very weird. There's like sort of hints at a story that are very sort of lofty and again loose. The story's not really that important, it doesn't feel like. It's like mostly just about this strange experience of feeling your way through this like very, very, very bizarre world. Oh, I'm not in the window. There we go. Yes. It's like a trepidatious yes, though. I wouldn't recommend this to anyone. Wouldn't recommend this game to like my sister. Let's give it like a solid 8. Let's give it an 8. It was just kind of exhaustingly huge and like structureless by the end. That's like kind of what got it down in the end for me, but there's so much to appreciate about it, so much that's cool. Okay, Balatro. I feel like you don't even need me to probably explain Balatro, like why it's a classic. This is a total recommend. I feel like it's like a 9.5 out of 10, personally. It's Peem, it's all the words. I guess to anybody who doesn't know, I'm sure there's people out there who don't know. This should really be open-ended, by the way. It's a poker roguelike where you're making hands to score points, and you go into shops and you buy cards that modify the rules of the game, basically. That's more or less the bit. It's kind of a Tainted Isaac kind of roguelike, where you have limited inventory space and you need to choose the best power-ups to take, basically. And it's got classic roguelike juice to it. It's got a ton of really cool synergies. I really love the way the text on all the cards is so literal, where it's like, it makes me think of like rulings, like, you know, calling the judge over when you're playing a card game like Magic the Gathering or whatever. And like, oh, like how does this specific interaction like work out? And it's like, oh, well, according to the wording on this card, then this should happen and that should happen. And it's like, Balatro's full of shit like that, where it's like, oh, you know, you have this thing where every face card that you play turns into a gold card. And then you have another thing that says all your cards count as face cards, so every card that you play turns into a gold card. All those, there's like a million cool synergies, really satisfying progression. The visuals are impeccable. All the little kinesthetic stuff of like picking up the cards and moving them around is so perfectly tuned. There's so much attention that went into that. I think my one, if I had to choose a gripe about Balatro, it's that playing it a lot and going for the higher difficulty stakes is kinda like, I've done it a lot. I mean, I've gotten gold stake on a few decks now, but it's tedious, and I kind of wish there were fewer stakes. There's what, like 7 or 8 stakes per deck. Kind of wish maybe there was like 5, and that they could just condense those different like difficulty steps into fewer stakes, so that it's not like so time consuming. And it's also like on higher stakes, the whole boss blind system kind of starts to fall apart, because there will be builds where it's like this entire build, like it's relying on my use of like face cards or of a certain hand type or whatever. And then you get to that boss blind that's like, oh yeah, if you play this certain hand type, you lose all your money. Or if all face cards are debuffed, you know? And it's like, I'm sitting here with a fucking eternal Socken Buskin, and I get all face cards are debuffed, and it's like, well, I'll just shoot myself, you know? And it's kind of, that's not a very satisfying type of difficulty, where it's like, oh, you just got fucked. Okay, cool. So that's like the one, that's the minus 0.5. Otherwise, I honestly think it's like a perfect game. It is so fucking good. So addictive, and it's got one song with dynamic changes in it, and I'm not sick of it yet. Like, I've played this game, how much have I played Balatro? Let me check. Oh, it's actually on, I play it on Isabel's account, and I'm not logged in there. Fuck. Whatever, easily over like 2 or maybe even 300 hours. It's such a good, and it's such a good like second monitor game if you're like doing work and you just want to like have something on the other monitor that's like not time sensitive. Replaced Minesweeper for me in that regard. Okay, Brutal Orchestra. This was a really cool game. Sometimes I think I kind of want to return to this game, but I don't know. I do want to say right out of the gate, recently I played Lisa the Painful, and I realized while playing Lisa the Painful, because I remembered when playing Brutal Orchestra, I was like, oh, this is kind of like a Hylics / like Binding of Isaac kind of thing. No. Brutal Orchestra is very, very Lisa coded. It's super Lisa in a lot of ways. Just its whole approach to like party members and and just the graphical style and a lot of the tone of it, it's very, very, very Lisa pilled. So I'm sorry, the dev watching that might have just been like, what is he saying about Hylics? Why is he talking about Hylics? But it's pretty good. I had a lot of fun with it. It's like the selling point that hooked me in was it's a like tactics RPG turn-based combat kind of game where you can see what your opponents are going to do before they do it, so you can like react appropriately. And it's like all the enemy attacks are really brutal and difficult, or like most of them, but the fact that you're able to see what they're about to do in advance makes it kind of balances it out and makes it a lot more thoughtful and a lot more like tactical. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the whole pigment system. It took me a second to really get a hang of like what was going on with the pigment system, but that stuff was really cool. Just really nice like RPG combat ideas. The music was pretty good. Some tracks were certainly better than others. And it's got like a cool story hook. I don't know. It was a very neat game. There's something about this game that didn't necessarily make me want to play more of it, but I'm always kind of on the fence. I'm always kind of like, oh, I kind of want to play more. And it's got that same kind of like Isaac-y progression where you beat the game for the first time, but it's like you haven't really beaten the game. You sort of unlock more and more stuff, which is that's a cool method of progression. I only did one stream of this, so I didn't get to see much, but it was a cool game. Let's give it like a 7.5. My gut wants to go with 7, and I'm gonna give it a 7. Sure, would recommend. Okay, Mini Shoot Adventures. This was a game that I think just visually looks kind of generic, but it was actually very fun. This is a top-down Zelda bullet hell shooter, basically, where you play as a little ship that is flying around this big open world, and you get like Metroidvania power-ups, basically, that give you like new traversal abilities and stuff. You know, you fly races against these little friendly spaceship NPCs. You beat a bunch of bosses, you kill enemies, a bunch of standard kind of bullet hell mishmashed with Metroidvania kind of stuff. Not a ton to say. It was just like a competent, good game. It was very clean. The art style is very clean. I kind of wish it had a little more like uniqueness factor, like wow factor going on, but it kind of does just look. It just looks solid and competent and good and clean. The visual style maybe kind of looks a little bit like Hollow Knight in a way. Just that same kind of like clean hand-drawn aesthetic, but doesn't really have the same sauce, I would necessarily say. And I wish there was maybe a little bit more creativity in like the enemy designs, although there are a lot of really cool ones. It was a fun game though. It was a really fun game, really nice music, kind of relaxing atmosphere. Yeah, I guess I wish it was a little more unique, but definitely a recommend. I'd honestly probably also give this one a 7. Let's give it actually like a 7.5. Just gut instinct. Okay. Animal Well, guys. Motherfucking Animal Well. I think this is a 10. I think this is a 10. We were talking about how many 10s are on this list earlier. This is a platformer, Metroidvania, side-scroller. I guess the screen doesn't really scroll, but this is an insanely good, a lot of people calling this kind of game Metroidbrania, which is a fun term. It's definitely in the same sort of vein of game as Tunic, or Fez, or The Outer Wilds, where it's a Metroidvania, and it has Metroidvania concepts in it, for sure. But it's also like, over the course of the game, you realize, you like gain knowledge of how the game works and how the world of the game works, that just kind of like totally shifts your perspective on everything that's happening in the game. I don't know, I don't really know how else to describe this. It's just got really cool puzzles, a ton of different types of puzzles. Some of them are like go truly insane. Maybe even too far. I think a couple of them perhaps go a little too far, but in a few places. But it's got this really cool structure of like, you can play, oh, thank you for the raid. You can play and enjoy the main part of the game with, you know, just basic Metroidvania knowledge. And you're just going through this cool game with great atmosphere, fantastic looking graphics, a really cool visual style, great sound design, a lot of creativity on display, a lot of charm. And it can just be like a cool, charming Metroidvania where you're collecting eggs, and that's it, and then you beat the final boss, and then you win, and the game is over. But then there's like 3 more layers of enjoyment to have with that game, where it's like, okay, you found all the eggs, okay, well, now solve this weird puzzle that is on all the eggs, and get like a secret ending, and then, oh, now...
But you're still bigger than your normal size.
You're right. Make me small again.
I love that guy. It's like there's layers to it. I guess I won't like spoil everything, but there's layers to it where it's like, oh, now there's like kind of a different kind of collectible that you really need to solve a bunch of like more esoteric, strange puzzles to get, and there's kind of a completion puzzle for that, and then there's like kind of almost an ARG-esque like Omega puzzle lying underneath all of that took people you know, like a day to solve, but regardless, a really cool, huge, weird puzzle. There's the layers aspect to it is so fucking cool, and it was really kind of a mind-blowing game. And it's great how, like, on the surface level, it's a phenomenal game, but then when you dig deep beneath the surface of the well, it's even better. It becomes like orders of magnitude better the more you look into it, which is funny because there's a lot of games where the more you play it, the more like the cracks start to show and you go, okay, you know, I'm starting to get sick of this. But with Animal Well, it's like it just keeps pulling you in more and more and more. Shit's crazy. Shit is fucking crazy. It's a 10. It's a fucking 10. I honestly can't think of anything I really dislike about it. The one, I guess, slight spoilers here, there is one puzzle in this game that requires online collaboration. I think that was a step too far, but like really, that's a tiny, tiny, tiny blemish to me on an enormous, basically perfect video game. So cool. So fucking cool. In like every way. Okay, Multiverses, on the other hand. Hold on. Let's get some music that's appropriate for Multiverses now. So, Multiverses. This is not a recommendation. It's probably gonna get a fucking like 3 out of 10. This is like one of the biggest bag fumbles of all time, and they weren't even really starting with that much potential. This is a platform fighter that is based on Warner Brothers properties, which to me, it's like a lot of the appeal of, oh, that was a very, very short, that was a very, very short song. Okay, get fucking Unknown from ME in here, whatever. Is that too loud? No, that's fine. This is a platform fighter based on Warner Brothers, and to me, a lot of the appeal, this is something that apparently most other people don't want to acknowledge or don't feel the same way about, but a lot of the appeal of Smash Brothers for me is like Nintendo characters in particular. Nintendo has, it's not like a totally uniform style or anything, but there's just some sort of, there's like lightning in a bottle. It's like a special sauce. Those Nintendo characters interacting in a game like that is so cool and charming, and it just works so well. And every other company that has tried to do that same kind of thing, where it's like, oh, here's this huge, bombastic fighting game with a bunch of characters from our respective properties, it's just been like, it just doesn't hit the same. Like, they the characters don't fit together tonally, stylistically, you know? And, you know, they go to great efforts in Multiverses, to be fair, to keep them sort of stylistically in line with each other. Voice crack. But at the end of the day, it's still like Agent Smith from The Matrix with Spike from Gremlins and Superman and the Iron Giant and Finn from Adventure Time, and it's like, what is this shit? Like, it's just not cohesive at all. But to be fair, the 3D models, the styling that they did on the characters does kind of make it better. Like, it makes them fit better together a little bit. Like, they tried, but there's so many parts about, like, the execution of this game that are just not good. There's this whole debacle where this game was in open beta for a very long time, and then it went down. It like stopped accepting players. You couldn't play it for like a year, and then when they brought it back up and they were like, here's like the main actual release of Multiverses, it was like distinctly way worse than the beta, and everybody was like, how is it worse? How is it worse? What do you mean it's worse? It was like just a huge shock. It was like people's expectations for this game were low as it stood, and then like the bar is in hell after the actual main release. So there's that aspect. Like, the game is just kind of broken. There's a fuck ton of infinites. For the longest time, I heard, this made me crack the fuck up, they added shielding to the game recently. Shielding just wasn't a thing in that game. There was no blocking for like years, and then finally enough people went, hey, maybe there's a reason most platform fighters have a shield function in them. Maybe it's a good thing to have a shield function in here. And they were like, finally, okay, we're just gonna add it in, and I can only imagine what kind of, you know, ramifications adding a shield into a game that was not balanced around having a shield would, you know, have. So there's a ton of like broken shit, glitches. The online, when Bella and I were trying to play the like 2v2 online, which is I think the most fun you can have with Multiverses, is just like casual 2v2s, because it's just like the combat is just more tuned to that kind of thing. And you gotta hand it to them, they put in some cool stuff for 2v2s where there's like moves that help your teammate and stuff like that. Like, that kind of stuff is cool, but it's so lousy, and it's like, at its best, it's bearable, and then you've got this entire, it's like, there's this tiny crumb of enjoyable game buried under a mile of issues, and then there's a whale sitting on top of that mile of issues, and that whale is the predatory monetization scheme that they're going with. I remember when there was this huge, like, back when I was on Twitter, there was this huge, like, shitstorm argument that people were having about hold on, I'm finding new music. Do we want... Sure, let's put some Lisa music on, fuck it. The conversation was like, is Multiverses, like, you know, a predatory monetization scheme? And seeing the people, like, arguing on Twitter about that shit really made me depressed, because I was like, free-to-play monetization models have won. Like, they're not going away. Hold on. I just clear my throat. It's like, these kind of predatory monetization schemes are just here to stay. The new generation of gamers has grown up in a world that has never not had those. You know, battle passes and all that type of shit. It's like, to the newest, youngest generation of gamers, that's just normal video games. And it's like, do you guys remember, people here who remember the kind of shit fits that were thrown when games tried to push that kind of scummy monetization scheme back in like the early days of that sort of thing? people got pissed. People like boycotted games and like protested and stuff because they were like, we don't want games to be like this. We much prefer just being able to purchase, the infamous horse armor. And it's like, oh my god, like, yeah, somebody said like, isn't this kind of because of TF2? Kinda, yeah. Valve has this tendency to like pioneer this really like successful kind of, you know, whether it's a type of video game or a marketing strategy or whatever, or monetization scheme, they'll pioneer something like really crazy successful and then it just makes the game industry worse. They've done that like 5 times. But it's like, man, the battle pass is just one. Like, they're here to stay. Multiverses, for instance, I believe at time of speaking, allows you to play 2 free characters. It has that like League of Legends like character rotation thing going on, where there's a roster of about 30 characters, maybe fewer actually, and every week there's like, oh, it's like free week for like Shaggy or some shit, and it's like, oh, there's like a free week for these characters, and only on that week can you play those characters without paying either real money or in-game currency. You can always tell that a game's got a scummy monetization scheme when it's got like 6 different types of in-game currency that all have different like amounts of value compared to real world dollars, just to like, it's all about, it's like a casino, it's a virtual casino where it's all about obfuscating and making you forget and not be entirely clear on how much money is flowing out of your pockets at any given time. And I think in particular in a fighting game, not having access to most of the roster at any given time and just having to be like, okay, I logged into the game for the first time and they gave me this like free character bonus, and it's like, oh, you can, you know, it gives you just enough currency or whatever to get 1 character, and then it's like, well, I hope you chose a character, I hope you happened to choose a character that you actually are going to enjoy playing. For me, it was Garnet from Steven Universe. I was just like, fuck it. I think it was free week for her, and I was like, yeah, she's fun, and I'll buy that. I never actually spent any money on multiverses, mind you. Bella did. She bought like a skin for Velma Dinkley or whatever. I was like, hun, no, please. But just having that like limited roster availability is so stupid on a fighting game. Like, that's terrible. And only recently did they update the game so that you can actually you can try out every character in training mode, which I think originally it didn't even have a training mode at all, and like the training mode still sucks ass. But also for the longest time when training mode existed, you couldn't play as any character. You could only play as the characters that you've purchased or that are on free week, which is just insane amounts of money grubbing. The single player content's really ass too. That's something that they added in the new release. It's just like it's so botched. It's just like, is there an inch of this thing that hasn't been fucked by a corporation, basically? It's like the vibe of this game. It's like you have to dig so hard and try so hard to find the crumb of enjoyability to this. Anyway, it's like, I don't know, don't play it. It's like, I want to give this one like a 2. It genuinely was like it was miserable, and it made me like sad. It made me sad about the world playing it. Okay. Anyway. I think we're getting way too heated. I mean, Multiverses like sucks. It sucks. And it's like, it's worth getting heated about this sort of thing. Like, corporations are like ruining life. Doesn't it feel that way? Maybe that's a tad dramatic, but remember when that CEO got shot a few days ago? That was pretty cool. The healthcare CEO? That shit was nuts. Fuck it, give it a 1. Give it a fucking 0. Anyway. Yeah, that's something that I keep thinking, like, when I would see people talking about this game on Twitter. And people are like, oh, you know, give them the benefit of the doubt, blah, 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 give them a fair chance or whatever. And I'm like, is there anything less deserving of the benefit of the doubt than a game like this that just has no respect for the fucking person playing it? That just, like, is chopping off its own limbs to get you to, like, pay money for the ARM DLC? No, like, there's nothing, it's like, why would you defend this? Whatever. Let's move on. Let's move on to Fallen Aces. Fallen Aces is definitely a recommend. However, this is the version that I played is the early access, but it's a very good early access. Very, very polished for, you know, an early access product. This is a first-person shooter, immersive sim, stealth action game that's like set in the in like a pulpy detective novel sort of fictionalized version of like the American 1920s and 30s. It's got a very cool art style. It kind of reminds me, a lot of aspects of this game kind of remind me of the Venture Brothers in a weird way. Like there's nothing that's like super identical, but there's a lot of just like similar vibes. It's got this really cool kind of 2.5D art style where the characters are hand-drawn. Sometimes they're rotoscoped, hand-drawn 2D sprites, basically, that move around in 3D space, a la Doom. The game looks really good. It plays really good. It's a really cool immersive sim. There's a lot of options of approach to any combat situation. There's a ton of funny interactions with like throwable objects. There's so much cool, just like weird little things to discover. And I don't know, it was really engaging and enjoyable. It's got really cool atmosphere and music. There's been a kind of a trend of a lot of those kind of games this stream, huh? It's got that Fallout quality where they've got a bunch of actual old songs that just are in the public domain so they can just use them. That's always fun when games can do that. It's fun. It was I found it pretty challenging. I found myself dying pretty frequently. I think this would be a game that would be super fucking fun to replay with, like, you know, going into it with the knowledge of a previous playthrough. You know, I think that's the appeal of a lot of kind of first-person sims like this, like your Thief, you know, or your Deus Ex. So maybe when the full game of this comes out, I might actually replay the first chapter, which is the content that's in the early access. And I think there's going to be 3 episodes, and each episode is like 5 chapters. And so I played the first episode, which was the first 5 chapters. I think that's how it's structured. Might have gotten some terminology wrong there, but yeah, Cruelty Squad. I gotta play Cruelty Squad at some point. So definitely recommend. It's very cool. It's very funny. This is another game where seeing the cutscenes, I'm like, oh goody, a cutscene, which is not usual for me. They got this really cool sort of like, again, like pulp fiction. It's this very pulpy, comic booky kind of style of cutscenes. Really good voice acting. Great sense of humor. I feel like it straddles that line between being funny and cool really well. Because it's like very over the top and goofy. It's got a lot of goon humor, but it never like loses itself in the sauce. Frankly, I want to give this one like a 9 out of 10. It was a blast, and it's just a early access. Okay, I'm just like looking at what we've got left. There's a bunch of like demos and early access. Multiversus, funnily enough, was like one of the few things here that isn't early access. Okay, Aero GPX. This game has got the sauce. This is a modern indie spiritual successor to F-Zero. It's really good. It's got an amazing soundtrack so far, at least. It nails that kind of F-Zero style and feel without feeling just like totally derivative. The gameplay is just extremely fun and polished. It's got this whole system where you do jumps. Jumps were always something that was like so scary and difficult in F-Zero that a lot of times, if it gives me the option of jumping, I'm just like not even gonna do it. But Aero GPX kind of fixes that by having jumps. You sort of transition into this like flight mode, and you can fly around, and then you sort of wave dash into the ground. There's this whole like, you drill dive and then smooth landing onto the ground, and it gives you a little boost of speed. And that whole mechanic is so satisfying and cool and like unique. Really had a blast playing this. I would love for, again, this is the early access. I would love for it to be a little more feature rich in the future. There just wasn't a ton of like content to it, which makes sense because it's early access. I kind of have a feeling that the final game might end up a little bit barren in terms of like actual content, but like this is gonna be, I'm just calling it right now, in the future when they actually add couch co-op or couch multiplayer, this is gonna be like a new favorite of mine for just like, I have a friend over, let's play Aero GPX. I don't know, or at least I'm gonna play a shit ton of it with Bella, I'm sure, because it's just so fun and the music's so good and it just looks so good. It's a really, really cool game. I give this beta, or this early access, maybe like let's give it like an 8, with, the knowledge that it's probably going to become even better. Like Fallen Aces, it's like, I feel like my score is probably not even gonna change when I get the full game. It's probably still gonna be a 9, just because like I can tell it's like that good. Aero GPX, there's a little bit of improvement to be made, I think, besides just adding more content. We'll see how far they go with that, and honestly, even if they don't add very much, I think it will still be an incredible, incredible video game. So yeah, sure. The early access, I should really like think about how I list this stuff. Maybe I should say like Aero GPX, square brackets, early access, or something, so that it's like very clear that I'm talking about specifically the early access. Whatever. Maybe I'll just change these scores when the full game comes out. I don't know. Okay, Hey Arnold the movie on Game Boy Advance. Definitely not gonna be a recommend from me, dog. This is a very box standard, boring, bad platformer based on a pre-existing IP. Shitty shovelware licensed game. It's not good. It's got a few really good songs, I think, in it that are like, okay, I'm enjoying listening to this, but that's it. That's like its only redeeming quality. The gameplay's not fun. Navigation isn't fun. The levels are just dull. Even there's a couple of like unique levels, like we're checking all the file cabinets. Oh, we're driving the bus over the bridge. Even those were just dull. It's so boring. Like a 2. Give it a 2. There's a lot of 2s today. I love Multiverses and Hey Arnold the movie got the same score. I didn't even intend to do that. That's so funny. Okay. Among Us. What's the background music? That's the one thing, is I'm not gonna be able to like tell people what this music is. I guess you'll just have to go on the entire Grapefruit's Jams playlist and listen to it all. But recently we've been listening to selections from the Lisa the Painful OST. This is Blood Moon Rising. This is the part where Brad slaughters a Native American tribe to cut down the last tree on Earth. Oh yeah. Oh, this song, man. Lisa's so cool. I'm not reviewing Lisa today, I think, but what a sick fucking game. I loved it. I loved that game. To anybody who's itching to hear my opinion. Okay, Among Us. Now, guys, I know Among Us is very popular and it's a very funny joke. I honestly didn't care for it too much. And a lot of that I think is because, and this is not in any way to discredit the Grapefruit Patreon Discord who we were playing it with, but I kind of think it works better if you're playing it with people you like really know personally. Because a lot of this play session of Among Us, I was just very confused, and I didn't know who was who and who was talking at any given time in like the emergency meetings. And I also just, going into this game, and I knew it was going to be like this, going into Among Us without knowing the overall like mechanics of the game and the mechanics of each map, I was just at such a severe disadvantage. It was kind of unfun in that aspect. And this is another one kind of like Mario Paint, where like the stream was very fun and I enjoyed streaming it, but I feel like if I had been just playing this off stream, it probably wouldn't, like, it was entertaining, you know, I'm an entertainer and it was entertaining, but I feel like if I had been playing it on my own, I kind of would have just been like, not for me. I'm nervous if I check the Lisa playlist, I'll get spoiled. I don't think that's something that's gonna happen, but great game. You should play Lisa. You gotta play it, Flippin' Egg. So honestly, frankly, Among Us doesn't get a huge recommend from me. It's also like, this game has sold so many copies and been such an enormous success. How is it still like so kind of cheap and shitty looking? That's something that like, and you're talking to a guy who's played a lot of Flash games. Okay, I don't have anything necessarily objectively, I don't think there's anything objectively bad about a game looking kind of trash, but Among Us, it's like, man, wouldn't it have been pretty easy to like make this look a lot cleaner and a lot of the little mini games a little easier to like deduce what you're supposed to do? Because some of them it's just like, oh, here's this like arcane set of shapes on screen and you need to figure out if you need to like click this part of it or drag this other part of it or what. And it's not like a huge, it's not like, oh, this is impossible to figure out. It's just like, it feels sloppy. It doesn't feel like an intended mechanic that you're supposed to sit there for the first time playing this game and be like, what do I do? It just feels like it's supposed to be a simple little task to kind of waste a little bit of time and make you feel vulnerable for a second while you're technically in danger while you're doing a task, you know? I don't know, there's just a lot that felt like rough about this. I didn't really like get it, and I do understand what makes a game like this enjoyable. I've enjoyed Werewolf in the past. But it's not really my type of game, and particularly the circumstances, like, it wasn't that enjoyable. There was really not a lot to love about it. I don't know. I don't know. Whatever score I give it, I feel like I'm gonna be like a contrarian. Let's give it like a 4. That's like 3.5. Just go with my gut again. Okay, Oriole Wings of Hope demo. This is the nipple game. Yeah, Among Us, it also just doesn't really have, like, it's got a style to it, but that style has been so Fortnite-ified by all the, like, cosmetics and shit, that it's just kind of like, it's got that same sort of, like, capitalism core, the consumerist media core sort of vibe. Okay, anyway, Oriole. This is another demo. This is for a side-scrolling platformer that's kind of like a Sonic-esque thing, where you play as a Halo, a golden Halo. And it was really fun and cool. It was very short, so I didn't really get a huge feel for the game. I'm probably gonna check out the full game when it comes out. I don't know, it had cool music, it had cool graphics. It had, honestly, the characters and the dialogue and the story I didn't really care about at all. I don't know how prevalent they're going to be in the main game. But the gameplay itself was very fun, the levels were cool, the physics of that little hoop that you play as are really fun just to like mess around with. The moveset is nice. This is another one where, like, you know, it's a demo, so a lot of this is just gonna be me going, I wonder if it's gonna be different in the future. But this is one, I'm gonna say, out of context, it's gonna look bad that there's a no on this, but I'm just gonna say wait till the full game to really see what this is all about, because right now we only have so much to go off of. This whole demo bit is kind of where the reviews really start to break down, is because it's like, how do you review a demo as like a unique product? So forgive me, it's kind of sloppy doing it like this. Okay, Threshold demo. Honestly, this demo didn't leave a great impression on me, which I was kind of saddened by, because all the other stuff I've seen about this game looked very cool. I still think I'm interested in the game, and I was interested in this demo because it was like, the dev was like, oh, the demo is unique content. It's like a side story. And I was like, oh, like Half-Life Uplink, very cool. But Threshold is out now? It's out? Oh my god. Well, I guess I better put my money where my mouth is. Jeez. The demo didn't really strike me very much, though. It was like 10 minutes long, and it felt like there wasn't really much information to process in it. I thought the one thing I remember about it is it had me select a flag at the beginning of the game, and I thought that was just supposed to be like, you know, oh, what language the game is in. But no, it changed the flag in-game. It was like, it changed the country that you're in the game. I was like, oh, that's cool. But I really don't recall much else. It was like this sort of dismal, like mining, kind of sci-fi, dark environment, where I think oxygen was low, and you kept having to, I kept finding these little canisters of like some kind of like drug or oxygen or something. Maybe I'm totally misremembering this, actually. Didn't leave a huge impression on me, clearly. So I don't know if I'd recommend the demo. I might still check out the full game, but honestly, this one, it really didn't leave much of an impression on me at all. Another 2. We're gonna give another 2, but that's just for the demo. That's just for the demo. Anyway, everybody's saying, oh, UFO 50's coming up, but I'm honestly gonna save UFO 50. I think maybe next review stream, it might be kind of fun, like, to make like a tier list of the UFO 50 games, like have a little like side portion where I just do a little quick tier list, quick and dirty. But we're gonna skip it for now. Okay, so we got just a few more. We got 3 more, and then I'm gonna dip. So Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut. Just getting this out of the way right away. I'm aware that both of the Sonic Adventure games that I played, the versions that I played are like the newer, worse versions, which is just funny. I think playing more Sonic games and learning more about Sonic game history has really made me understand why so many Sonic fans are like fucking nuts. Because it's like they've been driven mad by such mistreatment of this series. And it's like, so few of the games are unambiguously good. And then when they make one that people really genuinely like, it's like, okay, well, in a few years we're gonna release a definitive edition that's gonna be the only edition that's possible to get, and it's gonna be botched and horrible. And it's like, oh, like this has happened with both Sonic Adventure games and Sonic Colors. It's like some of the very few pretty universally beloved Sonic Adventure games. Oh shit, this is probably a copyrighted song. This is a really cool song called Let Forever Be by the Chemical Brothers. Sick music video. Gonna skip it. We're going Ace Attorney music for this last bit. So I get why Sonic fans are like just tearing their hair out like all the fucking time, because it's like you just can't have anything nice. It's like even when there's a good Sonic game, then they're going to like paste over it with the shitty version. Yeah, Sonic Generations is an exception to the rule. I've heard people saying the Sonic Generations one is actually good, which, you know, good for them. Good for them. Sonic fans, you need a dub every once in a while, you know what I mean? So, Sonic Adventure DX. Sonic Adventure is very cool. I would probably say, oh yeah, and it says here that I played using a mod that makes it a little bit better, which is fine. But I would honestly say probably and I haven't played the original Sonic Adventure, but just from all I've seen, all I've heard, I would definitely say if you can get your hands on original Sonic Adventure, if you can somehow emulate successfully this game, I know there's also, I think in Better SADX, or there's some other mod that makes it so you can revert the graphics in Sonic Adventure DX to the old graphics, basically, to make it look like how it did on the Dreamcast. Because there's just so much stuff about this version of the game where, like, the lighting and the models and the aesthetic of it just all looks slightly worse on the DX version and looks better on the Dreamcast. And, like, audio issues and stuff like that. So I think somewhere out there, it might not be Better SADX, but I think somewhere out there is a mod that makes it look visually more like Sonic Adventure original. Which is cool. I didn't play with that version, but that is cool. Sonic Adventure is a cool game with a ton of really, like, amateurish, like, shitty issues. And I know that a lot of that is because, by definition, the people making this game literally were amateurs at making 3D games, because this is a very early 3D game. Not as early as... a lot of people compare this game to Mario 64, which I think is kind of funny, because I think a more apt comparison would be like Mario Sunshine, if we're talking like the time that they came out. But it's an early 3D game. They were figuring shit out as they went. And there's a lot of issues because of that, but there's also a lot of really fun ideas. I think Sonic Adventure has one of the fucking best soundtracks ever fucking made. So good that I had to say fucking twice in one sentence. They're just genuinely amazing albums to listen to. Like, of all, I've always heard people, you know, glaze Sonic music, and it's like, you know, the classic games obviously have some bangers, but those are kind of a lot of time, like, old chiptunes and stuff like that. They can be really great, but they're not often the kind of music that I want to, like, sit down and listen to. Oh god, I've got the hiccups. Bad time to get the hiccups, man. A lot of times, like, older game soundtracks, they can be really good, but they're not really the kind of music I want to, like, sit down and listen to. But Sonic Adventure OST is, like, fucking peak. It's so good. So definitely, I mean, even if you're not going to play the game, at least check out the soundtrack, because it's really, really good. And it's got a very distinctive kind of style to it as well. The gameplay is all over the place. The structure is all over the place. I really kind of love the idea of Sonic Adventure, where it's like you've got a bunch of different characters, and it's like a Rashomon, where you're like you're seeing this story from the perspective of a bunch of different characters and all their specific exploits and the ways that they interact in the story. And that's just interesting to me. There's a lot of aspects of that I feel could have been done better, particularly in the English translation for the game. There's this whole aspect of it where when you're there'll be times where it's like, oh, you play Tails' story and you play Sonic's story, and both of their stories have cutscenes that they share in common. So you're just sitting there watching, and in, I think, the original version of Sonic Adventure DX, you can't skip the cutscenes, or maybe even just the original Sonic Adventure. I don't know, actually. In some versions of this game, you can't even skip the cutscenes. But a lot of times you're sitting there and you're going, why am I sitting here watching the same cutscene over and over again for the different characters' stories? Like, there must be some solution to this. But apparently, the original intent was each cutscene is supposed to be slightly different and show the perspective of that character that's watching the events unfold, you know? So for instance, like, the one thing that, like, stuck out to me is, like, why is this cutscene different? There was that one cutscene that you see it from Sonic's perspective and you see it from Tails' perspective, and Dr. Eggman in it acts differently, and he, like, voice acts differently. And in Tails' cutscene, he's, like, kind of scary, and he's, like, getting really angry and, like, yelling and stuff. And in Sonic's version of the cutscene, he kind of just sounds like a cantankerous old man, like a silly old man who needs to be taught a lesson. And it's like, that's kind of a cool concept, but that was like the only part of the game where I felt that shining through. And I really wish they had done more with that. Maybe, again, it's just an issue with the English translation, which the English voice acting is really terrible. It's like, when I see voice acting like that, I'm like, has anybody ever told these voice actors about talking? Have they talked before? Have you spoken before? Like, just talk like you would talk. Why do you... I don't understand why you have to put on a weird voice. Like, obviously you're voicing a little cartoon character, but like, why do you have to put on like the intentional like bad acting voice? I don't understand. Like, I don't get how you get performances that bad out of performers. But anyway, there's a lot of charm to this game. A lot of it's kind of like, it's like a Kusoge where it's like aspects of this game are terrible, but you just sit there and you're like, aw, bless their heart, they tried, you know? There's a lot of aspects of this game that I think I would have found really frustrating if Bella had not been helping me out, basically. Parts about navigating the overworld, where to go next, I think would have been a huge point of contention if I had streamed this game solo. So thank you to Bella for guiding me through that stuff, but I think honestly if I had been playing it on my own, there would have been a lot more things that really frustrated me about this game. Thankfully, it's easy. This is something that is a huge dividing factor between Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. Is Sonic Adventure 1 is relatively quite easy. There's a couple kind of tricky moments, but like overall there's nothing too difficult about it. And it's like, I'd much rather a Sonic game be too easy than be too hard. And that being said, I mean, some of the boss fights in Sonic Adventure 1 are just like, is that a joke? Like, you can just hit them over and over again and they just die. You know, like, it feels like maybe these fights could have been fleshed out just a tiny bit more, but I'll take it over Flying Battery Zone and the Bio Lizard in Sonic Adventure 2 any day of the week. Calling Sonic Adventure Kusoge would get you flayed in some countries. Sonic Adventure DX. Let's say specifically Sonic Adventure DX. Anyway, let's try to give a grade to Sonic Adventure DX. I don't even know if I would recommend it. It's honestly, it's nice. I'm gonna go ahead and say yes for Sonic Adventure 1 and no for Sonic Adventure 2. I know that's like criminal amongst certain members of the Sonic community, but I really, in my heart, that's really how I feel. Sonic Adventure 1, man. It's like the parts of it that I like, I really like. And the parts of it that I dislike aren't really that bad to me. You know what I mean? It's like the offensive parts of it are not that offensive. I'm gonna give it an 8. I'm gonna give it a solid 8. And you know what, Sonic the fucking Hedgehog? You can thank me for it. You can thank me for that 8 as I go into not recommending Sonic Adventure 2. There's just a lot of cool aspects to it. I don't know. Okay, Sonic Adventure 2 basically is like they sanded off a lot of the edges and a lot of the unique components of Sonic Adventure 1, and it's a little more polished, but it's got a lot more things that I find objectionable in it that are just like inexcusable, like all that shit with Knuckles' stupid emerald detection radar. In Sonic Adventure 1, there were levels where you had to find shards of the Chaos, or like the Master Emerald or whatever, as Knuckles, and you know, when you get close to one, there's like this proximity radar that beeps. And in Sonic Adventure 2, for whatever fucking reason, this just feels like a lot of times I'm like, oh, you know, good and bad game design is like subjective, and you can't just say something's bad game design. But like, what the fuck were they cooking with the stupid, like the radar in Adventure 2 is just worse. It's like you can only see one emerald shard at a time. So there could be situations where you're searching all over the map and you pass by the other 2 shards a million times without finding the first one. That's just awful. Somebody's saying something about the VMU. Did the VMU play into emerald hunting? I didn't know that. But regardless, just terrible to play on the, because we were playing the GameCube version. That's just like an inexcusable game design flaw, in my opinion. And there's just a bunch of frustrating things about it, frustrating levels, difficult segments. I think when Sonic gets too difficult, it's just frustrating and annoying, and that's why a lot of people hate Sonic games, like, is because of those frustrating moments in games like that. Yeah, I've never heard of that VMU thing, but it could be true. I don't know. We're getting some, even chat's not sure. And yeah, somebody said the Knuckles and Rouge levels are atrocious. Yeah. There's just some parts where it's like, did they try playing this level before releasing it? Or did they just model it and go, we got a ship, get it out the door right now? Like, it feels like a food truck type beat. So honestly, like, there were cool parts, there's cool music. Even honestly, the soundtrack of Adventure 2 doesn't hit nearly the same as Sonic Adventure 1. There's like a few hits off of Sonic Adventure 2's OST, but like, it's not nearly as strong in my opinion. And it's just got so many little frustrating elements. I do like the story. The story is good. I really enjoy the way if you stop playing and come back, there's a little like recap depending on where you are in the story. That really delighted me. The cutscenes were pretty good. They were better than the Sonic Adventure 1 cutscenes, that's for sure. But overall, it just was a lot less enjoyable for me, frankly. There's too much bullshit, too. What are we giving it? I honestly maybe would give it like a 5.5. I'm sorry. What was the other like controversial? Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Zelda Echoes of Wisdom and Sonic Adventure 2 battle kind of maybe got done dirty this stream, but that's the vibe. I gotta go with the vibe in my head. Yeah, the ending of Sonic Adventure 2 was awesome, and I think particularly both games have that like final level. Same as Sonic 4. Both of the adventure games have that big final level where you're fighting like a huge boss in supersonic form, and definitely the one in Sonic Adventure 2 is way better. You gotta hand it to him in that regard. Oh, you were thinking of Skies of Arcadia with the VMU thing? Okay, that makes sense. From what little I know about Skies of Arcadia. Okay, last game on the list for today. Sonic Roboblast 2 Kart. This is a very fun, very cool, kind of dead Mario Kart clone. It's really fun, and I say clone, but it's got a host of its own sort of unique mechanics. It's just a formula that works. It's based in like speaking of like, games sharing DNA with old boomer shooters, it's, I think, built in some constituent of the Doom engine, which is funny. It's got that same kind of like rotating 2D sprites in a 3D space deal going on. It's just a really fun kart racer with a ton of community-made content. If you can get your hands on like level packs or character, there's gotta be like 1,000 different playable character mods that people have made for this game. Huge community surrounding it, but unfortunately, ever since the release of Ring Racers, the Sonic Roboblast 2 Kart community has been pretty dead, and it's hard to even find a game if you're trying to play it online or anything. The only way that we were able to enjoy it quite a bit, but that was largely because we were having the Patreon Discord people come in and play with us, which was great. I mean, that was much better than the Among Us experience, just because you don't need to know interpersonal relationships to play Mario Kart with someone. It's just madcap fun. It's got a bunch of stages with great music. Sonic series has a lot of good music to pull from. It was just really nice, simple fun. It was a little jank getting it to work and getting like mods and stuff working, but not that jank. It was relatively easy. It's based on a heavily modified version of a Doom source port named Doom Legacy. There you go. It's Doom related. So would recommend, but with, I guess I won't type a literal asterisk here, but with the kind of asterisk of, it might be kind of hard to get a bunch of people together to play it. That's like the one issue, is it's got that dead online game issue, where there's just not a huge audience of people actually actively playing it anymore. I'd give this, it was like an 8. It was fun. It was a fun game. Wasn't something I need to play for like the rest of my life or anything, but it was fun while we played it. And I think for today, that is going to be it. If I had more time, we've already been going 2.5 hours. My throat is feeling sore just from all this talking. I'm getting to the point where my brain is getting stupid, and I'm just inserting a bunch of swear words into sentences instead of saying That's how you can tell that it's getting bad. So next time, I will try to do a bunch of quirky Earthbound RPGs and a bunch of Ace Attorney games and Astrobot. Because I'm feeling worn out. I'm worn. And next time we'll also probably do UFO 50 and whatever else shows up. Probably Kirby's Dream Land 3, Kirby Superstar, etc. All depends on what I play. But look, the list is looking pretty clean right now. And I know I gotta eventually do all the FromSoft shit and all the Pajama Sam and shit like that. I'll do it. I really will. It's just, these streams kind of take a lot out of me. I love doing them. I know people love watching them, but, or at least some people do. It's draining. I need to be in, like, the right mindset to be able to do one of these well, I think. But this was fun. UFO 50. Fucking Gap. Has any game gotten a 0? No. I don't think so. Let's look, actually. I don't think so. I think the lowest it goes is 1, which is like Power Punch. Far From Noise was 1.5. Plan B, Alone in Pico, Slime Bubble Bro, Pico Fox. Yeah, a bunch of Pico games got 1s. Spider-Man and the X-Men in Arcade's Revenge. Level 2 the Virus... No. Level 2 the Virus Master was fucking awesome. Home got a 1. Yeah, that was a rough game. Home was like a bad video game, and then it ended with the developer of the game joking about murdering his spouse in real life or something. Pepsi Man got a 1, and that's not PS1 Pepsi Man, that's arcade gambling machine Pepsi Man. Yeah, I don't think there's any 0s. Way of Life Free Edition, yep, that was kind of ass. Space Pugs Demo, this was just like an unfinished student project. Yeah, I don't see any 0s on here. I wonder if I were to give any game a 0, like what would it be, you know? Power Punch 2 is like the quintessential 1 out of 10. Okay. I would pick up a rat and show you guys, but they're still sleeping, they're still cozy. I think I'll leave them to it. Here, actually, I took pictures before the stream with the idea of showing people. You know, just showing they're doing okay. Let me actually send it over to my computer. I missed my rats. I missed them dearly. I'm glad to be back. And I took these pictures because they were being very cute. Let's just save these. Go to downloads. Bum, bum, bum. Actually, fuck, where even is downloads? Oh no. Oh god. I don't like have a downloads folder. where could it have put that? Oh no, this is a disaster. I literally don't have a downloads folder. Users. Here we go. It's in the, like, version of my, like, users folder that I never use. Okay, here. Ah, so big. There's little Mallow taking a little sleep with his little hand. I felt so bad the other day. I really try when closing the cage to not, like, pinch them in the door in any way. Mallow got his little hand caught in between the, like, tray on the outside of his, cage and the door, and it wasn't, like, stuck, like, hard or anything, but he kind of went, like, he, like, moved out of the way. I was like, oh, no, I'm so sorry, buddy. I didn't realize your tiny little hand was there. But he's fine. I mean, that's the hand that got pinched, and it's fine. He didn't even, I mean, if chinchillas get, like, upset about anything, they, like, vocalize. They make, like, a sound. So he didn't make any sort of noise. I think he's fine. But I still felt bad. Here's little baby Shoe sleeping. So adorable. And then he woke up and looked at me, and it was very cute. Oh, there I am. There's my little babies. I love them so much. Look at him. What a crazy little guy. Anyway, there's your rat cam for today. Maybe next time I do one of these, I'll have more of a real rat cam set up, or maybe not. We'll see. Anyway, I think I'm done. That was fun, but my brain is in liquid form, dribbling out of my ears, ruining the electronics in my headphones. So I hope you guys got a kick out of the stream. I know there's like a small group of people who really, really like the review streams, and I like doing them, so... Oh, shit. What the fuck is... What, is it display capture? Why is it even showing you guys this? Oh no, it's window capture. That makes sense. I was just like, can we, like, raid somebody? I'll make you big. You wanna be big? Nobody's actually streaming right now, though, that I follow. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna go. But you've been a lovely audience today, and hopefully I will be able to do another one of these soon. I say it every single time, and it's never true, but, raid salty bet? No, they don't allow raids. You've been a wonderful audience. It was fun reviewing games for you. I'm sorry about what I did to FNAF 3 and Zelda Echoes of Wisdom and Sonic Adventure 2. These are all just my personal opinions. You're allowed to love these games as much as you want. Please have a wonderful day.